Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, February 25th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, the Manhattan DA, as of about an hour ago, has Donald Trump's taxes. Meanwhile, the military begins vaccination deliveries in New York and Texas, soon in Florida and Pennsylvania, as the real-world performance for the Pfizer vaccine after 2 doses is 95% protection for hospitalization and serious illness. The House to pass a COVID relief bill tomorrow. Progressives warn Senate Democrats about the minimum wage. Meanwhile, the bill has enormous popular support, even amongst Republicans. Will Joe Biden give Louis DeJoy the boot? Well, yesterday in front of Congress, the postmaster tells the House, "Get used to me." Meanwhile, an ex-Cuomo aide alleges a ongoing sexual harassment by the governor. The White House claims it's going to fight for Neera Tanden's nomination, but it doesn't appear anybody else will. Joe Biden getting mixed marks on immigration front. New report, not only did Texans' energy deregulation leave Texans unprotected, it cost them more. The U.S. government will release a declassified report today, which will single out Saudi prince for the Khashoggi killing. Senate is bucking Nancy Pelosi's January 6th commission. And some sad news for New York, Seattle, and Portland. Joe Biden has revoked Donald Trump's order. You are no longer anarchist cities. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Joining me, as always, Emma Vigeland. Emma, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You seem to be a little bit out of sorts.
I dropped the remote for the camera. You said I had too much headroom.
There you go.
I had to scramble on the floor.
There you go.
To try to find the remote. Day in the life of being a part of a media operation, right? That's what most hosts have to do?
Of course. That is a classic case of the old drop the remote for the camera play. Yeah, I think you learned that in journalism school, probably. Yeah. Folks, thanks for joining us. We'll get right into this. Tomorrow, of course, the House will pass the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. After that, it will move to the Senate. Their plan is to pass it sometime over the next 2 weeks. There is, in mid to late March, a deadline looming, and that is when the bulk of the unemployment insurance extensions and expansions end. And it's going to take a while to get it out the door, so they really need to do this rather quickly. We are all, and by we, I mean the American public in many respects, is waiting on the parliamentarian of the Senate to rule on the question of whether the $15 minimum wage is eligible to be voted upon during reconciliation. We've mentioned this many times before, Emma, but there are specific rules about what, and not just rules, really. I mean, frankly, it's statutory. There are laws as to what can be a part of a reconciliation bill. Reconciliation only requires a simple majority, does not require a filibuster-proof majority. It can only deal with issues that directly affect the federal budget. We will get into a little bit what the argument is as to why this affects the federal budget. But for now, let's leave it there and start with Wednesday night, last night, Chris Hayes asked Bernie Sanders if there is enough votes in the Senate to pass a $15 minimum wage, considering that there is a filibuster that still exists in the Senate, and you need 60 senators to approve of an increase in the minimum wage. Here's that clip.
Wasn't in this package. Like, do you think you could win a floor vote on it? If you just said up or down?
Oh,
no, you couldn't. No, okay.
No, you could not. As of now, there's not one Republican who will support a $15 an hour minimum.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, I just what you're saying, just to be clear here, is that if you're in a filibuster world and you need 10 Republican votes, you're saying there's not 10 Republican votes to raise the wage.
Let me be very clear about this. The only way that we are going to raise the minimum wage is through reconciliation or ending the filibuster. In my view, I do not see in the foreseeable future getting significant support from Republicans.
So there it is. There's only two ways to get a $15 minimum wage. That is through reconciliation or reconciliation, as the senator says.
I love his peculiar pronunciation of things. There's very few people on this planet who can achieve it.
Yeah, he does it. When he does it, it's charming. I often mispronounce things. It's not so charming.
Yeah. Well, it's good.
Or the filibuster, as he didn't call it. In the past, Bernie Sanders has been reluctant to get rid of the filibuster. I suspect that has changed because of the nature of the Republican Party and the nature of the Senate becoming more clear as a non-democratic small d body. We know that the Republicans account for 50 senators, half the Senate, but represent something less than 40% of the population of the country. Because of the nature of the Senate.
And also because he's weighed what needs to happen to make this country an equitable place to live, or just a place to live where you can live. We need a living wage in this country, and he knows that's more important than the filibuster. I mean, I think I disagreed with some of his reasoning in the past on this, one of the few things I disagree with Bernie Sanders on, but he seems to, based on that clip, and based on his softening position on this, have kind of had a switch recently on that.
Now, Ron Klain, the chief of staff for President Biden, says that Joe Biden wants the $15 minimum wage. And we should be clear here. This is a 4-year roll-in for the $15 minimum wage. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to roll in. And here is John Thune, Republican. And here is his reasoning as to why a $15 minimum wage is completely absurd. It is unsustainable, according to him, and it is presumably far too generous. And he has a story from his own life to show you, all you people who want a living wage, a $15 minimum wage, just how sort of frivolous and spoiled you are.
Anecdotal evidence. That's how all senators should be ruling on important matters like wages.
What's worse is his anecdotal evidence is not supporting the assertion that he thinks it does. Here it is.
Colleagues have pointed out, I think the minimum wage is something that is particularly troubling and harmful at a time when you're trying to get people back to work and trying to create jobs again, because it drives up the cost of hiring people.
1 second.
And I can
Let's be clear what's happening right now. People are not going back to work. Businesses are not opening because there's no customers, because there's not enough customers who are willing to go out and buy a sandwich or sit down at a restaurant or whatever it is and risk getting COVID. We have 500,000 people who have died in this country because of this disease in really less than a year. And so the reason why businesses are struggling, it is because there is a pandemic. And in those instances where people would be willing to go out, which I don't think is as great as John Thune thinks it is irresponsible for governments to allow these places to be open. Now, we should be funding these businesses, make no mistake about it, to keep them afloat. But the real question is, could we sustain a $15 minimum wage? And of course, again, it's not happening overnight. It's not going to happen during COVID. That is why Bernie Sanders, when
it's staggered. It goes until 2025. That's when it becomes 15.
When Rand Paul tried to, I think it was, or was it Joni Ernst, tried to offer an amendment saying that we would not raise the minimum wage during COVID, Bernie Sanders said, I'll vote for that because that's not what's happening. So John Thune is setting up a bit of a straw man here. Really two different straw mans. One is that somehow raising the minimum wage would inhibit demand. It will not. It'll increase demand. You'll get more people in that restaurant. But the problem why we don't have people in the restaurant right now has to do with COVID, has nothing to do with what people are employing, paying their employees. Frankly, the government should be paying the employees. That's a separate story because we would want to discourage people from having to go to work in instances where they might be subjected to getting COVID. But here is the real kicker. John Thune's going to bring his point home. He was a real bootstraps guy back in the day, and you other people, you're all just looking for a handout.
Create jobs again because it drives up the cost of hiring people. And I can tell you, as somebody like Senator Scott, who was growing up in a small town, I worked for less than the minimum wage. I worked for the minimum wage. I started bussing tables at $1 an hour. I went up to $2.25 when they moved me up in the place, and then I finally made it to cook, which was big time. That was $6 an hour. But everybody in my town, I grew up in a little town on Interstate 90, as people were heading west to Mount Rushmore and Yellowstone and points beyond, was in one way or another involved in the travel industry. So two of my brothers worked at filling stations. My sister waited tables. My other brother worked at our big local attraction, which was the Pioneer Auto Show. And as I said, I cooked at the Star Family Restaurant. All of those businesses work with very narrow margins. And if you take a $15 minimum wage, and I will tell you right now in South Dakota, the minimum wage, and our state sets it, which is frankly where I think it should be done, our state has a $9.45 minimum wage. What you're essentially telling those businesses in South Dakota that I just mentioned, that you're going to increase the amount of money that they have to pay their workers by over 50%. 50% increase in the wages that they would pay. Well, what does that do? Obviously, it puts a lot of them out of business, but it also raises the cost of everything else. That's got to get passed on. So anybody who's buying a hamburger or filling up or getting a motel room there in that community or communities alike and all across South Dakota and all across this country are going to see the cost of doing business go up. That's going to make it that much harder for people who are trying to get back into the economy to get back in the economy. And as has already been pointed out, don't believe us. The Congressional Budget Office, which is the scorekeeper, the referee, if you will, when it comes to these issues, has said that it would cost the economy 1.4 million jobs.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just let me jump in really quickly because Johnny Appleseed over here, he's the real picture of American hard work. Yeah, bussing tables, or maybe he's Johnny Rocket. I don't really know. The reason those jobs would be lost is because the people making a starvation wage right now would no longer have to work 3 jobs, say at Burger King, say at Walmart, say at McDonald's as well. They would work 1 job. Primarily, the companies that would be affected would be something like McDonald's. It wouldn't be $1 anymore. It would be $1.50 for a burger off the dollar menu. They may have to adjust their marketing strategy. That would be really difficult. And you may have fewer employees. But the thing about the wage is that it gives, on average, people $4,000 more a year when they're raising it from $7.25 or I guess that was in West Virginia, from $8.50 or whatever it is to $15 over that time. That goes back into the economy and goes back to help those small businesses, as opposed to having to be used on things like utilities, which is what poor people have to do when they are getting their money. Like, it's not able to go back to things like restaurants, which he's trying to paint this all-American picture of right there.
Well, and there have been studies actually as to how much the burger would raise, and it's really closer to actually 10 cents, maybe 5 cents. And for folks who have a restaurant, there's a lot of other costs that are associated on top of labor. There is the cost of the food. There is the fixed cost of the location. But let's go to the issue of his saying that he was making $6 an hour back when he was, I think it was in high school. This is before, presumably, still in his hometown. And that would have been some folks, Kevin Cruz, the historian, has done a little bit of research on this. And apparently John Thune would have been, was at age 16, John Thune, it would have been 1971. And can we put up this this graphic here? So, 1976. John Thune was born in 1961. And that's 1979. It turns out, actually, he would have been 16, but let's just call it 1979. So he would have been 18 in 1979. $6 in 1979, as you can see here, care of the inflation calculator, would be $23.11.
That's incredibly close to the Center for Economic Policy and Research's number that the minimum wage, if it did keep up with that increase in inflation and with productivity, would be $24 an hour.
If it was the case that John Thune, since we're going by the Thune measure as to whether people deserve a living wage, if it was the case that he was making that money in 1976, $6, this guy's going around, he's making $27 an hour. Almost $28 an hour. No wonder why he was living large back then.
I'm shocked that the restaurant that he cooked food at didn't go out of business immediately, just having to carry John Thune's wage along with him. What a burden he placed on that mom and pop shop.
And let's be clear, who's coming in and eating at that mom and pop shop? Not the people who are making $7 an hour, but if they're making $15 an hour, they're going to go out to eat at that mom and pop shop more likely. And so business is going to increase for everybody. There's been plenty of studies on this. It's conceivable that there is a number that you could raise the minimum wage to, that it would inhibit people's ability to run a business, but there's just no actual data to support that.
There isn't, but they rely on just kind of obscuring those facts and not talking about the issue in a complex way, and people's ignorance. That's a Republican MO.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will argue, we will talk about what is facing the minimum wage. John Thune is not the biggest obstacle to the minimum wage. In fact, he's not one at all. The biggest obstacle to the minimum wage at this point is whether it will be part of the COVID-19 relief bill. We'll be back in just a moment. Hey, one of our sponsors today is Ground News. Ground News is a first-of-its-kind news comparison app. And you can download it totally free by going to ground.news/majority. Look, I've talked about this in the past. Really, one of the things that I think is like basically our job here is to have a sense of what reporting is the most credible and what is What is actually going on? Every outlet has its own. Some have more of an agenda than others, but they all have their own perspective. They all have their own assumptions based into it, whether it's a mainstream liberal slanting outlet, or a right-wing outlet, or a British outlet, or an American outlet, who finances it, who funds it, who's got better reporters, whatnot. And ultimately, the way that you become a good consumer of media is to read all of these sources and compare. And over time, you start to see patterns. You start to see slants. You start to see, whose reporting holds up over time and whose reporting does not. And that's what's so great about ground news. It makes it super easy for you to do that. If you have kids and you want to teach them, older kids, I'm not saying 7-year-olds, but if you have teenagers, you want to teach them how to be discerning consumer media, consumers of media and of reporting. An app like Ground News is perfect. It gives you a crystal clear picture of how individual media corporations or outlets or whatever it is are reporting news stories, are spinning them. Maybe you start to realize maybe there's a slight slant here. I wonder why. And you could dig a little bit deeper, but nevertheless, it gives you the opportunity to see across different type of reporting platforms and assess for yourself. Plus, it also raises stories that you may not see because of the nature of the media that you've been consuming. We're all living in our own little bubble. Again, it is ground.news/majority. It's free. Check it out today. Also, one of our sponsors is BetterHelp Online Counseling. They're giving our audience 10% off their first month when you go to betterhelp.com/majority report. BetterHelp, as you know, gives you access to your own fully licensed and accredited therapist via phone, chat, or video. A lot of people going to therapy for the first time. A lot of people continuing to go to therapy. A lot of people returning to therapy during a pandemic because it's driving everybody a little bit batty. It's very stressful.
Me included.
Everybody. Everybody. And then so one of the problems you got is a lot of therapists have long wait lists. Sometimes it can take you weeks. Sometimes it can take you months before a therapist can see you. When you sign up with BetterHelp, they match you with a therapist in your first 24 hours. They could tailor it to your specific needs. If there's certain specialties you need from the therapist, BetterHelp has them. They have therapists from all across the country. Those specialties may not be available in your area. And once BetterHelp connects you with a therapist, if for whatever reason it's not the right fit, it happens. Over the years, I've had therapists, and I'm like, you know what? That's not working for me.
Yeah.
You can switch to a new one at any time for no extra cost, for no reason, any reason, I should say, and no additional charge. BetterHelp also tends to be more affordable than therapists you'd find through traditional means. You don't have to have insurance to use BetterHelp, and they do have financial aid options for those who qualify. BetterHelp has given everyone in our audience 10% off your first month when you go to betterhelp.com/majority report. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/majority report. You can find the URL in the video description of this program. You can find it in the YouTube, the podcast description, all over the place as we put all of our links are in there. So the big obstacle at this point to the $15 minimum wage in the $1.9 trillion COVID bill, and we should also say the resolution that sets up a reconciliation bill locks in the number 1.9. And so it's always a little bit in flux based upon what's ultimately going to be. That gets locked in before you actually formulate the bill. So it gives you essentially a to use a sports metaphor, like a salary cap. Mm-hmm. And you can expend that on a power forward, or you can spend it on a great new point guard, or you can do some combination of the both, or whatever it is. I'm presuming the NBA has a salary cap. But
yes,
maybe
they do.
And I got to check with them on that. And so there have been multiple studies about the impact of a $15 minimum wage. And it has ranged from it will provide billions more to the U.S. Treasury in taxes because you've got people making more money and that money is taxed and it goes into the Treasury and more money is spent. So it could expand the economy, arguably. Certainly when you give money to people living with low income, they spend that money immediately. It may be on utilities. Maybe it's on food. Maybe it's on, you know what? I'm going to go see a movie because now I'm making a little bit of extra money and I'm going to splurge. I'm going to see a movie once a month or something.
As opposed to the wealthy hoarding it, putting into their investment portfolio, etc.
The saying goes, a rich man can only buy one loaf of bread at a time. And there's when you start getting into millions of dollars, there's just no way to expend that. You put it in the stock market. All you're doing is you're making that money to make more money. You're not actually going out and expending it and putting it into the economy in a way that expands the economy. The question and the Congressional Budget Office ran the numbers on the minimum wage, and they found that it's actually going to increase the deficit. Now, these are based on certain assumptions that people can quibble with. But $64 billion over the course of 10 years is not a huge increase in the deficit. So the number itself is not scaring anybody away in terms of deficit. And of course, there's very little deficit talk anymore. We just passed a tax bill that, put a gaping hole in the deficit. And the fact is that when the economy's hurting, there's a lot of new research and study that show deficits don't seem to have an impact. And if the economy starts to overheat in some fashion, there are certainly ways in which you can slow it down, increase taxes.
And there's also just a lot of repudiation of that CBO report because it's not as bipartisan as people think. It is headed by, I believe, someone with Republican ties.
Oh yeah, it's a former person from the American Enterprise Institute is heading it, who was appointed by Trump. Yeah. But nevertheless, we can quibble back and forth about the accuracy of that report. But regardless of whose report you look at, whether it says it's going to create a deficit or a surplus, the bottom line is that it impacts the federal budget on one side of the ledger or another. And as such, Bernie Sanders, many others, believe that it qualifies under the Byrd Rule. However, the Byrd Rule being the rule that says under reconciliation, there's a whole series of laws actually that are associated with it, but the long and short of it is it must impact the U.S. federal budget. However, and so the parliamentarian rules on this says it's okay. You can go forward and you could vote on it. It can be included in this budget reconciliation.
And we'll find that out within the next 48 hours, right?
I think we will know this by Monday or Tuesday at the latest. Could be earlier. Here's Congressman Ro Khanna coming on and just reminding people, though, however, that not only can the parliamentarian say it can go in, but there is also a rule in the Senate that the Vice President of the United States, who is the President of the Senate, essentially, can overrule the parliamentarian's ruling. And here is Ro Khanna on with Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC last night.
Lawrence, you started out perfectly. There is no provision in the Constitution that says that the Senate parliamentarian has any power. And Ron Klain is a brilliant constitutional lawyer. He knows that the vice president has this decision. And in 1975, Vice President Rockefeller disregarded the advice of the Senate parliamentarian when they actually lowered the threshold on the filibuster from 67 votes to 60 votes. And Robert Dove, a Senate parliamentarian who I know you respect because you served in the Senate, has said many times that people have disregarded the parliamentarian's ruling. So we should just be honest with folks. If there are political reasons that the White House doesn't want to disregard the parliamentarian for whatever reason, then just come out and say that. But know that this is the decision that the White House has. The vice president has every power to disregard that decision.
So let's be clear on what's happening here. And Ro Khanna's not the only person who is holding the Biden administration to account, Because as Khanna said, Ron Klain is out there saying we would not. And in fact, here is the, Ron Klain had said we would not. Here it is. White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain made clear Wednesday in an interview that the administration is opposed to ignoring the advice of the parliamentarian. Quote, certainly that's not something we would do. Now, I don't know how the question was phrased. You can give me advice. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not necessarily going to follow it either. And I may overrule it. But Representative Pramila Jayapal, who is the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, appeared on MSNBC also yesterday that Democrats, quote, made a promise to people across this country that we're going to raise the minimum wage and that we're going to put money in people's pockets. It's been 12 years since we raised the minimum wage. And if we're going to make those promises, we have to be able to deliver on them, Jayapal said. Because I'll tell you what, in 2 years, when people vote in the midterms, you're not going to be able to say, well, I'm sorry, we couldn't raise the minimum wage because the parliamentarian ruled that we couldn't do it. That's not going to fly. And that's not going to fly.
No. But this is what the Biden administration has begun to show is going to be their number one go-to in the playbook. Their best play. If in their minds, I think it's idiotic, but to hide behind procedure, to hide behind these very convoluted Senate procedures or executive action, fine print things like with student debt. He's saying, oh, well, it might be legal for me to cancel $10,000 of student debt by executive order, but not $50,000. That's when it becomes illegal. There's nothing that shows that that's the case. It's just he doesn't want to help people that much based on obscure reasons. So he's making up that there's some procedural obstacle in between 10,000 and 50,000, if he does 10,000 at all. And then the same thing here with Klain, who I'm sure this is coming from Biden because it sounds like him. We're not going to overrule the parliamentarian in order to give people $15 minimum wage. We don't know what the parliamentarian is going to rule. Hopefully that we don't even have to cross that bridge. But it is a major obstacle because this could kill $15 minimum wage forever. Not forever, but in the 4 years under Biden. And that would be a huge blow to the Democratic Party because they need to use this opportunity now to materially help people for their own electoral butts, if anything else.
Right. And that's what Bernie Sanders was saying. So you really got two options here. You either do this through reconciliation or you get rid of the filibuster. And you can leave an unelected parliamentarian in charge of this, or you can simply say that, in this instance, there's just too much evidence that it impacts the budget in one way or another, regardless of whose study you want to look at. There's no studies out there that says it's not going to impact the budget.
These are your values. Last thing, right? Do you value the Senate parliamentarian and the Senate rules and the mythology of the Senate? That the parliamentarian's not in the Constitution, but it's just Biden was a senator for many years. He loves just all of the little rules and all of the pieces that make up this body that he was a part of, that he adheres to. Is that what you value, or do you value helping people's lives materially? And if you do value that, you're going to overrule the parliamentarian. But I don't know if he would do that. That kills it immediately. And then you have the other obstacle of Manchin and Sinema.
Well, and I find it hard to believe that those two will stand in the way of this as well. But the bottom line is that's why you have Khanna and Jayapal out there, and I imagine there are others who are saying, come clean. If you don't want a $15 minimum wage, then not have one. But don't pretend that it's because of the parliamentarian. Here is a Republican senator, I should say, Roger Marshall. And this is his opportunity to come out with his story about how he pulled up himself by his bootstraps. This is very short. But again, a $15 minimum wage does not keep pace with inflation, does not keep pace with worker productivity. Yet you have all these Republican senators coming out and comparing apples to oranges. Here is Roger Marshall. Listen to what he has to say about how he worked his way through college.
I worked with about 15 other high school classmates through high school and junior college with a great part-time job, and it was a great supplement to my income and helped me not have any debt when I finished college as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, according to this tweet from Bubba Prague, who is this from, Brendan?
This is Timothy Burke, is his name.
Timothy Burke. Where is he from? Do we know?
He used to work at Deadspin, and now he's got his own media outfit called Burke Comms.
And he makes the point that Roger Marshall's argument for not raising the minimum wage is that he had a minimum wage job and paid for his entire college tuition. When he graduated from Kansas State University, tuition was $898 a year. Not $898,000, not $89,000, not even $8,000 a year. It was under $1,000 a year. Not even $900 a year. It is now $10,000. It is, in other words, more than 10 times more expensive to go to Kansas State University. The minimum wage then was $3.35. And now it is $7.25. Do you see the difference there, right?
Yeah.
One is 10 times less, and the other is just half or double.
All over. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there is a problem with old people like myself that we just sort of assume nothing has changed.
How dare you?
Yes.
You're not old.
I am. I'm not as old as Roger Marshall, but
Age
I don't
is
know.
a mindset, and Roger Marshall's mindset is...
He's ancient.
It's in 20 BC.
He's ancient. Meanwhile, so that is what's happening with that. There's one other issue that we should talk about, that you should know about in terms of this COVID-19 relief bill. We will see what happens when it comes to the minimum wage. That drama will be playing out over the course of the next 48, 72 hours. There is another issue, and that is the Democrats have the opportunity to reverse something that they had basically overlooked, which is that unemployment benefits are taxable income. Now, in normal times, this is generally not a problem because there's a smaller portion of the American public that is on unemployment benefits. There is not an expansion of unemployment benefits. There is not such dire circumstances. It's not necessarily something that you would want in normal times, but it's a much bigger problem, both for, as a policy standpoint and certainly politically. Some state unemployment insurance offices withhold a percentage of unemployment benefits for tax purposes, sometimes. And often unemployment benefits are so low that they're not subject to being taxed because you haven't even crossed a threshold where you would actually pay any type of income tax. That is why we saw when there was an expansion, and not just an expansion in terms of like who is eligible, but an increase in the amount of federal subsidy on top of unemployment. And it's going to be $400 in this COVID-19 bill as it stands now. It was $600 back in the early months of following the CARES Act. That pulled a lot of people out of poverty. And so they suddenly became eligible for being taxed. Unlikely that they set aside that money. People were just not aware of this. And so there is a massive hit that people are looking at in terms of being taxed. This is something that Bernie Sanders has called for a long time. That is tax forgiveness on unemployment benefits accrued during the pandemic.
But how would you punish people for taking unemployment benefits, Sam, and make them feel even worse that they're out of work?
Well, it's hard to know if that's sort of the reasoning. I mean,
it is. I mean, it's like so much of politics is about discipline, and that's kind of what it is. It's disciplining you for being out of work in the pandemic. Say you lost your job, say you thought it was going to come back, and then you've been on unemployment for a long time. But somehow you need to personally feel wrong, even though you were the one who was wronged by just a pandemic and a government that didn't respond appropriately.
So there's an opportunity for Democrats here to essentially write in tax forgiveness for those funds or to provide tax forgiveness funds. And remember, they're stuck under the $1.9 trillion cap. So if they were to basically say we are going to waive taxes on unemployment benefits for during the pandemic, it's going to cost the U.S. government something. Now, there are a bunch of so-called moderate Democrats who are a little concerned that they've heard that some governors are going to provide tax cuts based upon the state funding that they get from this bill. So they are looking to earmark some of these money that is set aside for the states and put it into things like infrastructure, or put it to something like this. That would be $50 billion max, would cover all that, and would keep you under the 1.9 cap. So that is just something to keep an eye on. If there is a late entry to this bill, it can be introduced in the Senate as an amendment to forgive taxes on unemployment benefits. Let's just also briefly now talk about what's going on with the post office.
Oh, yes. This is a fascinating story in my view.
Yes. I think people remember that there was a lot of controversy around the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, who was a former, basically executive in the overnight delivery business, essentially. And he was appointed Postmaster General by Donald Trump and proceeded to implement plans that many people thought was a way to debilitate the post office as we have a pandemic and a run-up to a lot of increased mail-in voting.
Basically deliberately slowing deliveries by slashing the ability of the post office to process mail on time, their machines, their tech, I believe even their workforce at certain points. This was all as mail-in ballots were surging, and he is continuing to try to cut drastically.
Well, he has a new secret plan.
Right.
In fact, he was on the Hill the other day saying, hey, does it really matter if we delay letters by a day or two? And I mean, literally. And of course, he doesn't care because he probably gets free FedEx based on his relationships or something.
I mean, but like, again, what is the reasoning? Why slow it down? Like, I wish there was more of a questioning about him in that. Anyway,
there's a whole myriad of questions about him. And he was at different times inhibited by court order to impose some of his plans. And so Joe Biden gets into office. He does not have the ability to fire the Postmaster General directly. There is a 9-member board of directors, and there has been a majority of Republicans on that board. The chair is a guy named Ron Bloom. He was a Trump-appointed Democrat. He is the 9th member. And there were 4 Republicans on that board, 1 other Democrat, and Ron Bloom. There was 3 vacancies. And Joe Biden could fire all of them for cause, which wouldn't be that hard to find. But yesterday, Louis DeJoy was in front of a House committee testifying and had this to say. Do we have a clip of this?
Yes.
He's testifying and he's talking to Jim Cooper, representative from Tennessee, Democrat, was being pressed by Jim Cooper, was talking to DeJoy. Here's this clip.
Mr. DeJoy, you're a political appointee, a holdover. No one knows how much longer your board.
That's incorrect. I'm not a political appointee. I was selected by a bipartisan board of governors, and I would really appreciate if you would get that straight.
Well, how much longer are you planning to stay?
A long time. Get used to me.
As long as the board approves your staying?
That's as far as my commitment to see our plan through, I'm here until I can see it tangibly produce the results we intended to. I believe the board is committed to that also.
But that's not determined by you, it's determined by the board.
Well, it could be determined by me. I could resign, right? I could get tired of it. I have other things I can do.
The gentleman's time has expired.
That's right. You just remind you of Donald Trump.
I
got other things I can do.
Yeah, I got a stamp collection, you know, in theme with the thing I do with the post office.
At that very moment, the White House was announcing that it had appointed 3 new people to the board of directors. Yep. President Biden named 2 Democrats and a nonpartisan voting rights advocate to fill 3 of the 4 openings on the Postal Service's governing board. This according to 3 people briefed on the discussions and later confirmed by the White House, as reported by the Washington Post. Ron Stroman, the Postal Service's recently retired Deputy Postmaster General. Amber McReynolds, the chief executive of the National Vote at Home Institute. I imagine if you support voting by mail, Louis DeJoy is not your favorite Postmaster General. If you probably have a list of
I'm
your
sure
favorite.
She's, partial to his lovely personality.
Yeah, exactly. Amber McReynolds, the chief executive of the National Vote at Home Institute. Anton Hajar, the former general counsel of the American Postal Workers Union. If all 3 win Senate confirmation, the 9-member board would be made up of an equal number of Democrats and Republicans. And then with McReynolds, whose organization is a darling of left-leaning groups, as the lone independent, it is unclear how Ron Bloom would vote as to whether he would vote to fire DeJoy. But it's quite clear that the timing of this at least signals that Joe Biden is tired of Louis DeJoy's antics. And I think the American public cares about its postal service.
I think they do, too. I think they don't want a postmaster general who's not interested in mail getting there on time, who arbitrarily says, hey, what does it matter if your mail gets there a few days late, huh?
And
I think all the American people care about is my mail coming on time. And then, people clued into politics should care that the ballots are being counted as we move into an era where mail-in ballots may become more frequent.
The Postal Service is really, just one of the most amazing things about the United States. The breadth and the range of where you can go to get a letter that you are, that if you live completely in the boonies, or if you live in a city surrounded by people, the idea that your mail service is just as takes you just as seriously, and you have the ability to communicate with people around not just the country but also the world, and also these jobs have become have been for decades a great way of allowing a wide range of people to enter into the middle class. One of the things that's happened apparently at the post office too is that there have been hiring freezes with all management positions. Folks at the post office have been under a tremendous amount of strain and pressure because of this guy, and his interests lie in trying to privatize as much of the mail service as possible. And I got news for you. FedEx is just not going to go to those distant places in any type of reasonable. It's not going to cost you 40 cents to mail a letter. It's going to cost you $15 to go, to the boonies. It's just the bottom line. So hopefully Joe Biden will do this. And what will be interesting too is to see what the perspective of these new board of directors are on expanding the services available at the post office. We've talked about this on this program in the past, but we had at one time in this country postal banking.
Yep.
Where basic services, banking services, were provided at the post office. This would help folks who are unhoused. It would help folks who are low income. It would diminish the power of the commercial banks in our society. It makes It would help the post office in terms of their solvency. One of the other things that's going on in the post office, and we have also mentioned this before, back in 2006, there was a bill passed primarily pushed by Republicans, but also joined by Democrats at the time, that required the post office to pre-fund its pension and benefits program by 75 years. You are pre-funding a benefit for people that not only don't work at the post office yet or aren't even born, right? Like you're eligible for it at age 65 or after 20, 25 years. You're no entity in the country has that requirement. And it has inhibited, remember, the Postal Service does not rely on government funding. Were it not for these requirements, stamps, deals it makes to deliver Amazon packages, whatever, would pay for the operations of the post office. And there is an attempt to fashion some type of bipartisan response to save the post office. There is some talk that some Democrats are at least being supportive of Louis DeJoy, because if they can get him to sign on to a bill like this.
Well, it's Carolyn Maloney, right?
Maloney, yes.
Maloney, right.
From New York.
Yeah.
So here's a clip from that same hearing. Jim Jordan says that Democrats are hypocrites and the post office is besieged by partisanship. Here we go.
Sad.
I mean, you were like I said, they had you as the worst guy on the planet back then, and now everything, it seems to be so much better now.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Conley, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And all the gaslighting that we just heard does not change facts. Mr. Diamondstein, please move the mic close to your mouth. Thank you. Am I making this up, as Mr. Jordan apparently would have you believe, that the President of the United States last summer, Donald J. Trump, publicly said voting by mail would lead to massive fraud? Did he say that, or am I imagining that, Mr. Diamondstein?
I don't think you're imagining it. What I recall him saying at one point is he was going to make sure that the Postal Service got no financial COVID emergency relief, because then they would be able to more effectively deliver ballots.
Thank you. But the point is, it was Donald Trump, the Republican nominee, who was planting the idea, aided and abetted by disruptive changes proposed by a new Postmaster General and a compliant Board of Governors, that actually eroded public confidence in the ability to vote by mail. That wasn't a Democratic narrative. That was a Republican narrative by the President of the United States and his enablers. And oh, by the way, inconvenient fact, Mr. Heiss would have you believe that it was partisans on this committee, and he quoted a number of Democrats, by the way, admitted Democrats. For the record, I'm an admitted Democrat and damn proud of it. I didn't vote to overturn an election, and I will not be lectured by people who did about partisanship.
Yeah, Jim Jordan doesn't engage in partisanship.
Jim Jordan also apparently does not respond when some of his players come to him and say, hey, we got a problem with
sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the classic conservative projection that we deal with on a daily basis. When Trump politicized the post office, it was not politicized by the previous administration. It was politicized for the exact purpose of Trump trying to lay the groundwork for overturning the election, as Jerry Connolly laid out there. I mean, you can't completely gut it and say, oh, I'm very worried about mail fraud, that's what we're going to see, and make it an entirely political enterprise, or that was the design to do so with his goon, Louis DeJoy, and then say it's the Democrats who are trying to politicize it by doing damage control. It's just that's part of what conservatives do. They always attack, and they always they always project.
All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, another disturbing story about Governor Andrew Cuomo. This time has nothing to do with his failures of leadership under COVID. Has to do with just his failure as a person.
Yep.
Period. All right, quick break. We'll be right back. So this story, there had been hints about this story, and I think there had been some reporting on this. Lindsey Boylan, she is a candidate right now for Manhattan Borough President in New York City.
Well, she had basically come out and said that Cuomo sexually harassed her, but she did not really want to go into further details, kind of out of fear, just trying to protect herself initially, and that was some weeks ago.
Yes, and it was she was an aide to Cuomo, or worked in the state government until 2018. And like you say, she had come out and sort of had sort of talked around the idea that he was abusive in some ways. She wrote an essay on, I guess it was on
Medium.
On Medium, and pretty disturbing. And I would be surprised if we don't hear from more folks, and women in particular, following this. She laid out her experiences over a couple of years with Andrew Cuomo. She didn't work in his office. This was October 2017 at an event in Western New York on his taxpayer-funded jet. They were flying home, and Cuomo says to her, let's play strip poker. And
she also alleges that he kissed her on the lips.
At one point later, or at a different time. 2018. She says in her essay, Cuomo has created a culture within his administration where sexual harassment and bullying is so pervasive that not only is it condoned but expected. His inappropriate behavior toward women was an affirmation that he liked you, that you must be doing something right. He used intimidation to silence his critics. If you dared to speak up, you would face consequences. That's why I panicked. On the morning of December 13th, that was the morning that he kissed her. But she talks about how different advisors had warned her at various times, be careful around the governor. There's also Ron Kim, another New York politician, has come out and said that he was,
bullied. I mean, but this is an open secret in New York that Cuomo is a bully and he's abusive towards people around him, his subordinates. He bullies people to get what he wants. He behaves like a mobster as the governor of New York, much like we see Trump do it more inartfully, and he's not as smart as Cuomo, but we saw him use intimidation tactics in those recorded phone calls with in Georgia, with Raffensperger. It's well documented that Cuomo has a history of using bullying and intimidation tactics, and now we also have allegations of sexual harassment and unwanted physical contact.
And there seems to be at least some stuff that she could back up with documentation and evidence. She writes, Stephanie Benton, the directors of the governor's offices, told me in an email on December 14th, 2016, that the governor suggested I look up images of Lisa Shields, his rumored former girlfriend, because, and she quotes here, we could be sisters, and I was, quote, the better looking sister. That to me sounds like she still has that email. The governor began calling me Lisa in front of colleagues. It was degrading. That is creepy.
Yep. And also just degrading is a good word to put in front of it, or to describe it, because it also dehumanizes her and makes her as a woman, an employee, an important, smart, presumably person working for the state, only a function of him, basically, because she looks like his ex-girlfriend, so it has to be a part of him.
She writes, I had complained to friends that the governor would go out of his way to touch me on my lower back and arms and legs. Now, the I complained to friends is her saying that I have what is known as contemporaneous reports at that time. When people look at these type of accusations, they see at the time, did the accuser tell anybody else about this? So she is laying out what is a very clear case. And
this shouldn't be shocking based on what we know about Andrew Cuomo, is all I'll say as well.
Yep. And she writes that she had left. And the reason why that she started to speak up, and other people did too, is because it was rumored that he was perhaps up for the attorney general's position in the Biden administration. I don't know how Cuomo skirts past this one. I mean, he's wriggled out of a lot of things in New York State, but we'll see if he does this one. We will talk more on a follow-up on this tomorrow. And until then, don't forget, if you missed any part of the show, 5 p.m., 10 p.m. on the Peacock app, look up on Choice Channel or just search for The Majority Report. We'll see you tomorrow. And for the rest of you, we'll see you today. I'm going to move into the fun half. I am going to step away from the desk slowly with my hands in the air. And Emma and
put your hands up.
Matt and Jamie will be here. And Brendan, of course. New Matt is on vacation. Just a reminder, this program relies on your support. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. We get 94.3% of our funding comes from members at this point. I mean, I haven't done the actual numbers, but it's pretty close to that. So if you can support this program, you support the free show, you get the fun half, jointhemajorityreport.com. Don't forget amquickie.com. If you want 7 minutes of headline news in the morning, and also justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Check out the Nomi Key Show, youtube.com/the Nomi Key Show, or twitch.tv/the Nomi Key Show. Old Matt, what's happening on Doomed?
Hello, Sam. Well, turns out that if you were just listening to the Majority Report and enjoyed hearing people talk about Cuomo in a critical way, then tonight's Doomed will be a show for you, because at youtube.com/Matt Binder, live tonight at 9 p.m., New York Assemblyman Ron Kim is joining me on the show to talk about what he's been going through with Andrew Cuomo and his fight to show what's been going on inside of New York City's nursing homes during the COVID pandemic, and basically what Cuomo has been doing to him to try to get him to try to silence him pretty much. He'll be on the show to talk about Cuomo, COVID, the anti-Asian racist attacks that have been going on in this country for the past year. All that tonight, youtube.com/Matt Binder with New York Assemblyman Ron Kim.
That's awesome. Good get.
Good job.
Thank you.
Matt Binder. Jamie, what's happening on the Antifada?
Hello. Well, this week on the Antifada, we had on our friends Amog and Matt from the Woodbine Space, which is a radical community center in Ridgewood, Queens, for a little chat about the new Adam Curtis series on the BBC. We put out the first part of it on yesterday. There's going to be a bonus coming out tomorrow, Friday. We all took kind of different views of it. I played the skeptic because I was having a tanky day and I was like, you know what, this guy's an anti-communist, but I straddle the line between tendencies. So I was equally angry on behalf of the Bolsheviks, the Chinese, and May 68, because, you know, it takes all kinds at the Antifada. But I think it was a very good conversation. And that's out now, patreon.com/the Antifada. Also, we have our Twitch stream 4 nights a week at 7. Tonight, I'm doing my second Antifada Ladies Night with Kate Willett, very funny lady. She wrote an audiobook about men and what's up with them. So we're going to talk about that. Yeah, check it out. Twitch.tv/the Antifada.
Great. And also check out Left Reckoning. I'm not sure what Matt's got up. Usually they go on Thursdays, but who knows?
I mean, is he? Yeah. What is he on vacation or is he doing Left Reckoning?
Oh, is Lex not here? What's going on?
He's on vacation.
Matt,
I don't know. Who knows? I don't know this stuff.
Found yourself as top Matt today.
You're going Matt solo today.
Oh wow!
All right,
classic.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920 is the number. These guys will see you in the fun half.
In for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back, back, boys back, and the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back, boys back, and the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
psych. Fuck them. Almost says what?
Almost
says what? Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black Africans. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Fuck things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Yeah. And we're back.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing, Jamie? Emma? Oh my God, Matt not being here threw me off. I had to stop for a second and think about who I'm saying hello to. Brendan, how are you guys doing?
I feel like I never have a good or amusing answer to this question these days, but maybe people like that because everyone's miserable right now.
Right.
I did not get enough sleep for the second night in a row, which is like kind of a killer. So if I turn my camera off, it's because I died.
For me, it's a weird day for sleep because I put my kids to bed last night and I fell asleep along with them at like 8 o'clock and woke up at like 3 a.m. and couldn't get back to sleep. So I got a lot of sleep, but I've been up since 3 a.m. So I don't know how I feel. I just feel weird.
Well, you must be pretty wired. I'm guessing there's a Red Bull or something just out of the frame.
It's I don't have any energy drinks, unfortunately, but it is soda in my nice little skull head cup.
That's very punk. and or very goth.
Well, that's true. Skulls can be both. That's right. That's one of the areas where goths like you and punks like me unite. Jamie.
Left unity forever.
I sort of kept my mouth shut during the first half when everyone was giving me props for getting Ron Kim on my show tonight. But as you guys know, I mentioned last week, but I left it out when talking to Sam, is Ron Kim might have felt compelled to do my show, being that I'm one of his constituents. So maybe not that big of a get for that reason.
Well, that's good. You could use that. Shit. I wish I covered more electoral things on my podcast because I could totally use that.
Right. Well, this isn't so much electoral we're talking about. We're talking tonight. We're going to be talking about how horrible things are in New York, thanks to a big part due to Governor Andrew Cuomo. So yeah, that'll be tonight, 9 p.m. And I guess that'll be the last time I'll promote the show until at the end of this show. So let's jump right in, guys. What do you think?
It seems like Emma's having some mic problems.
Ooh.
Is someone trying to fix that?
No, no one's trying to fix that. We're just going to let it ride.
Now, can someone let me know if Emma needs me to turn on the phone system on my end? Because I could do that if necessary. We could run it how we've been running it.
I mean, you might want to bring it up anyway.
Okay, I'll bring it up anyway. Let me do that. So you want to grab something, pull something up, and hit the first story you want to hit, Jamie, while I pull this up?
Sure. Okay. So let's see.
Kyle's on the line, I just realized. Hello, Kyle.
Yeah, every time I hear Kyle, I'm like, oh, that's new.
Who's this guy?
Who the hell is that? No, hello, Kyle. It's always good to know who's on the line. Okay, where is it? So, okay. There is a spirited back and forth currently going on in the Republican Party as to Donald Trump in general. What's the deal with him? What do we do with him? And specifically, whether he should speak at CPAC, which is the latest controversy here. So we have a situation where Kevin McCarthy and Liz Cheney, kind of representing two different sides of this issue, were interviewed by C-SPAN about whether or not Donald Trump should speak at CPAC, and they gave two rather different answers.
Just very briefly, for you and the leadership, especially Congresswoman Cheney, do you believe President Trump should be speaking, or former President Trump should be speaking at CPAC this weekend?
Yes, he should.
Congresswoman Cheney?
That's up to CPAC. I've been clear in my views about President Trump and the extent to which following January 6th, I don't believe that he should be playing a role in the future of the party or the country.
On that high note, thank you all very much.
Wow. So my first impulse here is that Liz is going to get owned and destroyed for going up against the former president because he still has very high approval ratings among Republican voters. I'd also like to point out that a recent poll found 70% of Republican voters would at least consider joining a new party started by Donald Trump. So this is kind of a fun, delicious split happening. Of course, we know that these two halves actually believe in most of the same things, but it is still amusing to think about like the discussions they're having, like on the fascist version of the Majority Report, for example. I don't know what that would be, but maybe the fascist version of me is like, yeah, we need a clean break from the Republican Party. They're a bunch of milquetoast cucks. And, you know, fascist Sam is like, oh, no, but Jamie, then the Democrats might win, those blood-sucking Democrats. And we can't risk that. That's so dangerous. So, you know, it's fun to savor that a little bit.
Right. Yeah, you know, GOP is going through a bit of a inter-party war between the people who think they could go back to time before Trump, which was the same as Trump, but just a little bit more subtle in their wording of things. And then there's people who want to go full bore exactly the way Trump was going and just fly their fascist ways in everyone's face.
Delightful.
But yeah, CPAC should be fun. It's going on this week, right? It's happening right now in Florida.
Is it right now? Oh boy.
I think it is, right? Yeah.
Well, perhaps we'll get some more clips out of this little controversy.
I hope.
It's fun to watch them fight. I know like none of this is a sign of anything good, but it is still fun to watch these ghouls, tear each other apart.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, listen, we gotta take the wins where we can get, even if we're not the ones on the offensive in this scenario. Let them fight is what I say.
Yeah. But leave it to the Democrats to squander even such a golden opportunity as this one.
Right. Well, we'll see. Did you guys actually, I don't know, because I sort of broke a little news yesterday on Twitter. A lot of people were shocked by this. Did you guys talk about that detention center for migrant children that the Biden administration's reopening down in Florida?
I believe we headlined it, yeah.
Oh, you did? All
but
right.
go for it.
Didn't really discuss it.
Did you guys remember that super viral clip that everyone was memeing last year a lot, but also I guess in 2019 as well, of Kamala Harris waving like this, and then she brings her hand down to her chest and holds it like an emotional moment, and everyone was memeing it. Do you remember that?
I must have blocked that one out.
Here, let me send it to you guys, and we'll Brendan, can you pull this up on the feed here? Give me 1 second. But yeah, so that clip that went viral, everyone was using, was taken when Kamala Harris was down in Florida in 2019 when she was running for president. And she was outside a detention center for migrant children, which happened to be this detention center for migrant children that is now being reopened in the administration that she is the vice president of. Here, I just sent you that clip, Brendan. And in 2019, this is what she said to BuzzFeed. She had texted BuzzFeed. They did an interview over text message, and BuzzFeed actually posted the screenshots of that text conversation. And this is what she said about this clip that Brendan will pull up on the screen right now. It's been sort of strange to see it become a meme because of how heartbreaking that actual moment was. I was standing on a ladder outside the Homestead Juvenile Immigrant Detention Center outside Miami, looking over the fence, and I saw children lined up like prisoners. They had been separated from their families and put in this private detention facility. It was horrible. I was there with other members of the Senate and Congress, and we were actually denied entry to the facility. I sit on the Homeland Security Committee, and they wouldn't let me see this facility where children are being detained. There were parents outside the fence with me who are crying because they can't get to their children who are inside. It was awful, and I was just heartbroken to see it all. What this administration is doing is a human rights abuse.
Wonder if they're gonna let anyone into this facility.
Right. And I mean, I had people, and I apparently was the first person to notice that this was the same facility that Kamala Harris was outside and that video was taken from. And there were those text messages that she talked about, where she talked about that same exact facility. But because I discovered this, a bunch of people who are, I'm assuming, Democrats, because they were very supportive of Biden and Harris in their comments to me, were attacking me for pointing this out. And the big talking point I saw was how, well, these aren't children who are being separated from their parents being sent to this facility. These are unaccompanied minors. Well, number one, half the problem, yes, was that Trump was separating children from their parents when they did cross the border together. Fine. So there will be no, apparently, as far as I know, children will no longer be taken from their parents and put in this facility. Fine. So it's just for unaccompanied minors. Well, that was only half the problem with this facility. There were claims of abuse going on in this facility. This facility was apparently being run like a prison. I mean, it's called a detention center, not like a child care facility. Why are unaccompanied minors, why are minors, period, being sent to this facility? Second of all, it's a private for-profit facility, which is bad to begin with. Third of all, the local activists down in Miami-Dade County fought really hard to get this facility closed. They fought so hard that now even the local Democratic Party in that county and the mayor, the Democratic mayor of Miami-Dade, just came out now and spoke out against the Biden administration's plan to reopen this facility. So this isn't even for the Biden-Harris stands, whose politics are strictly about, you know, loving their favorite main characters or whatever. The actual party in that county have come out against this reopening of this facility. And, you know, when we talk about unaccompanied minors, unaccompanied minors are often sent by their parents to come to America with the idea that there are relatives or family members waiting here already in the country to take them in. Why don't we just take their information and then escort them to those family members or those relatives' homes so they can actually stay in the care of people they know? I mean, it's a pretty simple, scenario here. And for those, for the more rare case of unaccompanied minors sent here simply without anyone, I mean, we can put them in childcare facilities where there are trained faculty members and staff members who have experience with children, who won't abuse them, who won't have them behind a building which has bars on the doors and looks like a prison. I mean, I don't know what the defense is here. You can criticize your faves when they do something wrong. I mean, and they
now Trump's got, I mean, maybe Trump, Biden's going to have to run against a Republican in 4 years from now. So maybe we can have that conversation later.
Right. I mean, listen, it's the plan to open it right now, a plan they have vocalized very clearly. Now is the perfect time to speak out and tell your fave that, hey, Biden, Harris, I really like you two. I love you guys, but you're really disappointing me with this plan. Can we stop this before it happens? Again, I'm your biggest fan. Just please don't do this. Maybe they'll listen to you guys because how much you love them. I mean, do something if you were against the kids in cages beforehand and are now all of a sudden scratching your head at what to do now. I mean, the answer is simpler now than it was before. Before, you had to fight against the guy you didn't vote for to close those cages for kids. Now, you can maybe appeal to the guy you like and did vote for to maybe listen to his constituents and not do that very same thing.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to hold my breath on that. I feel like this, more so than other promises that Biden has already gone back on, like the $15 minimum wage, like, oh, vote Democrats for Senate and you'll get a $2,000 check. Like, and the student loan forgiveness. Like, people were pissed about that. But this really seems to have struck a nerve because kids in cages is just one of those unconscionable things that Democrats ran against, and it was used to browbeat a lot of progressives into voting for Joe Biden. Like, well, if you don't vote for this guy, you believe that kids should be in cages. And people are right to be pissed about it. And right. I think this could be I don't know if you want to call it a turning point, just a red line in the sand that's getting crossed. But I don't think Biden is going to enjoy the same kind of honeymoon that Barack Obama did. I think protests are going to start happening again very, very soon. It's possible, it's not possible. It's probable that more killer cops are going to get off as well. Biden's going to say some more cop-loving bootlicker shit. And we're going to see another wave of protests. It's going to make last summer look like child's play. That's my prediction. That's my hopeful prediction.
It could certainly happen. I think that's a very good prediction. I mean, speaking, you brought up Obama. It really every day shocks me at how disengaged and just off the grid Obama went the second he was out of office. I really thought this would be, again, not someone who would be doing this for things you and I, Jamie, necessarily agree with. I'm not saying he would have been out there fighting for progressive causes, but I thought he would be out there at least fighting for even like the most basic like Democratic Party lines. But the dude just literally disappeared until primary season came, and then he made a bunch of phone calls and then disappeared again. I mean, literally has done very little, which I'm surprised about. But, you know, his campaign did the same thing. His own campaign staff did the same thing in 2008 and 2012. They basically created one of the greatest presidential campaigns of all time. And then instead of helping Democratic candidates down the line, they took the private money from big tech companies in Silicon Valley and from Wall Street firms in New York. And they basically said, peace politics. And they sold out and made a ton of money. So, you know, I guess it wasn't a surprise if you knew he would, you know, just disengage as well. But still surprised. It still shocks me when I think about it.
Yep. And this is not some wild leftist policy goal either. Like, there are plenty of good-hearted liberals who also believe that this facility should be shut down. So I really hope that we see some real militant grassroots action around this issue, because it seems like the kind of thing that has the potential to unite leftists and liberals in some sort of popular anti-Biden front.
I mean, you literally have the actual official local Democratic Party organization coming out against this. Like, usually those local Democratic Party, like at the county level or the state level, local levels, they usually toe the party line for the most part. And when maybe like a member or two speak out, they usually get a phone call and are convinced to stick with the party line for now. But literally the entire Democratic Party, or at least under the name of the entire Democratic Party, they put out a statement coming out against this. So again, that's something that happens every day.
Yeah. We shall see what happens next.
All right, let's
we got Emma back.
I'm back.
Oh,
Sorry
cool.
about that, guys. So little behind the scenes, my audio runs through Sam's when he's here, so there's no echo. And when Sam left, I was kicked off the stream. Had to.
I deplatformed Emma.
Yeah.
By deplatforming Sam.
Brendan canceled me after because of my association with Sam, but I'm back. I'm back, folks.
Great. So we covered Jamie covered CPAC, and
that's so sad because that was my favorite clip on there. Jamie got the jump on me.
Sorry.
And I just covered my revelation from yesterday evening that the detention facility for migrant children, that the detention center for migrant children they're opening in Florida, was the same one that Kamala Harris came out against in 2019, where she did that now viral wave.
Yes.
Can't make this shit up. Good super sleuthing on your part, Matt.
Because I don't think people even knew that was from outside a detention center for migrants who crossed the border. Like I don't, because I had people even say, whoa, that's what that clip's from? How weird was it that we turned that into a meme? Like, she literally was like, and listen, I'm not going to attack someone for whatever, but it's without a doubt, if you watch that clip, for some reason, I don't know why, it looks very weird, like very like planned. I'm not someone who falls into like that type of stuff, but her movement's very unnatural. So that's all I have to say about
They plan things like that. They do that shit all the time.
You're trying to say that Kamala Harris is inauthentic, Matt?
Yeah, but then I see the same people, and people on the, especially the maybe I shouldn't even bring these people up, but the door left attacking AOC right now for her photos where she was crying outside the detention centers for the same, and that to me, that's clearly not an example of someone hamming it up for the cameras. It looks legit to me.
I mean, it's always a combination, right? Every single time we present ourselves in public, it is a combination of how we want people to see us and how some organic expression of us on the inside. And, someone like AOC, who is a genuine person, is able to marry those things really flawlessly and use her genuine humanity to achieve the goals that she wants to. And you really can't fake that.
Right. You'd be, you know, listeners might be shocked to know that all three of us don't wake up looking this great.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know about your makeup routine, Jamie, but it is the bane of my existence. And I really don't do much. Like it's like I take 10 minutes, you know, do very little, but I just hate the routine of it, and I hate washing it off. It's like just absolutely the worst.
Yeah, it gets all smeary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always bother with it, I gotta say. I'm
No,
like
good for
sort of
you.
in a game of chicken with the beauty standards in our society, because sometimes I'm like, well, whatever, the guys don't wear makeup, why should I don't
But
feel
they
like it.
do.
But
On
then
camera, they do.
They do.
Men wear.
Yes.
I don't think
Wait,
Sam
really?
does, but men.
Yes. When the one time where I was on MSNBC, they sat me in the chair and did put some, like, you know, just basically powder and stuff like that, so my face wasn't glowing in the frame.
Well,
they were
I
going to do something
hung
to my
out with
hair.
Cenk. I hung out with Cenk at CNN, and I was in the makeup room with him and Don Lemon, and they were getting their makeup done.
That's funny. Well, I was talking about the Majority Report. You know, the guys that I see on a daily basis do not appear to be wearing makeup, although maybe they are, and they've just hid it very skillfully from me. I don't know, but
Listen, my eyeliner game is on point, Jamie. You just don't know.
no, I am sure it is. Once again, something that goths and punks can both agree on. Eyeliner on men. It's a real look. It's a vibe. But no, sometimes I won't wear it, and then I'll see myself on camera and be like, wow, I'm looking rough. Like, why would I not want to look as good as I know that I can? But so, you know, it's seesaws back and forth, but people aren't allowed to comment on it. Is the main point, the main takeaway.
Right.
It's,
Emma, do you have the phones open on your end, or do you need me to do it?
Do you mind doing it? Because I'm in my seat, and all that stuff's in Sam's.
No problem. I actually have it all ready to go. I just have to call in. There we go. I just didn't want to call in if you were already in, because I don't know what happens if two people try to call in at the same time.
No worries. No worries.
Didn't want to mess with that. So the phone systems are now open, and this could get interesting because we opened the phone systems late, and that means that maybe the usual people who basically have the Majority Report number on speed dial to like automatically call it exactly 1 p.m. Eastern time every day, maybe they're not on no, we just got and I know exactly who just called in, but let's go to this person. 308, what's your name? Where are you calling from? 308. Hello. Uh-oh.
Looks
like they hung up. Okay, so let's go to 914. What's your name? Where you calling from?
What's going on, Matt? It's Keith from Westchester, New York.
Hey, Keith from Westchester, New York. Jamie, Emma, Brendan, you here, Keith?
Yeah.
Dude, did I just call you Matt? I'm so sorry. I'm kind of, slept a little late today. But I got on, so it's cool.
No, I am Matt, so you could call me Matt. This is Matt Bender, the OG Matt, not that newfangled Matt Leck. But what's up? What'd you like to talk about today?
I would love to actually probe Emma about nuclear energy if you guys want to indulge.
Oh, I'd prefer not to, but okay.
We'll be brief.
Okay, perfect.
So Emma, I know you have a little skepticism, and I would really love to hear your position and go into depth about why you're skeptical.
Emma, do not go into depth. Let's keep this to a normal call length.
Okay, my reasons for skepticism are I think that there's immense potential for disaster no matter the technology, given the for-profit nature of energy. I think that when you're dealing with something as complex as nuclear power, there has to be immense amounts of regulation, and I have zero faith in the federal government to do that adequately. I think that we can harness renewable energy in a way that's a lot cleaner and safer. I think there's a better argument to be made about nuclear energy as a transition or as a supplement to in between fossil fuels and to solar and wind. But otherwise, I don't understand the push. I think it's fairly expensive, And I think I don't necessarily see it as something that would be as sustainable as something like solar, wind, or even geothermal.
Awesome. All right. So the way to really refute these pro-nuclear people is there's three main topics. First, we got to attack the future fusion reactors, like what the sun does. Oh, we can make nuclear energy happen without any nuclear radioactive byproducts. That stuff doesn't exist off paper. So people that assert that there can be a, hazardous nuclear waste-free nuclear energy production process, that doesn't exist off paper. Number two, we go through the entire fuel cycle. First, you need to mine uranium ore. Then you need to transfer it. Then you need to refine it. Then you need to transfer it again. Then you need to process it and use it. And then you have spent fuel rods, which are hazardous and usually end up in neighborhoods of low SES communities. And then finally, you have, as you pointed on, the regulation, the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They're in bed with the industry. There's zero regulation. Usually people from the industry go into regulator positions. People from the academic positions go into the industry and then become regulators. It's all very much inside baseball, incredibly unsafe. All these reactors are from the 1980s, 1990s. They're too expensive to build. No insurance will insure a nuclear power plant because it's a bomb. I think I said my spiel.
All right. Thanks, man.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate
thanks for calling. I got to be honest, I don't know
nuclear
enough about...
is not a green future.
Right. Yeah. I don't know enough about it to have an argument, but I agree. Let's go to 266, which says it's a general foreign Skype number. And I'm a little bit nervous to go take this call because apparently, according to my dad's text messages, as he listens to the show throughout the week, the British caller who called in last week is apparently not my biggest fan. Is that correct, Emma?
Well, apparently, yeah, already said something like something about balls, something about
I think it
those
was.
kinds
I
of
can open the text from my dad, I'm sure, but something like licking or sniffing his balls or something, his British balls or something like that. But anyway, 266. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, team. This is Matt from London. How's it going?
Oh, hey, how you doing?
I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but hopefully I can raise the bar for British-based callers.
I think you could just by that. What's going on? What would you like to talk about today?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say a warm welcome to Emma and congrats on joining the team. I know your work from TYT, and I've always been a fan of your work, not of your appearance, just to be very clear. And I think the caller who talked about that was unboundary. Not cool, bro. That's not how we build a. That's not how we build a winning team. Let's say.
I appreciate that, and I just want to follow up to that and just say, like, I didn't mean to, single that guy out, and I appreciate, the fact that there are fans who like me for different reasons and things like that. But just in terms of the discourse on the show, I just really wanted to keep it political because, that's why I'm in this. So not about.
The left stream of Vash said something that on that I wish I'd known or felt when I was 17, which is women are just people, bro. They're just people. If you will say. My call is to say that I think I agree with most of the people on the team about 80%. And Jamie, also a shout out to you. I think our viewpoints differ, but I appreciate the perspective you bring to things. What I would like to call it and say is it's not so bad on this channel, but there is a tendency on the I'd say left-wing media out of the US to view UK politics through a sort of US prism or paradigm, especially when it comes to someone like Jeremy Corbyn. And there seems to be this sort of view of him as, he was like a Bernie Sanders type figure. And Jeremy Corbyn was never a Bernie Sanders type figure and never will be a Bernie Sanders type figure because he completely failed to sell his message in the way that Bernie does. I mean, there's umpteen examples, you guys have put them on the show, of Bernie going out onto hostile media, right-wing media, and actually kind of winning the argument by moving away from cultural issues and keeping it simple, appealing to people's economic interests, just good common sense stuff and coming from a place of strength. And that's just not the kind of figure Jeremy Corbyn was. So he's a disastrous leader of the left in the UK. And the other thing I'd like to say is that the UK is not a two-party or three-party system in the way that the US is. What we are is, because of first past the post, we still have two-party outcomes, but we're a 4 or 5 party system. I mean, you've got the Conservatives, obviously, you've got Labour, you've got the Lib Dems, who did some things I disagree with in the 2010 to 2015 coalition, but you've got the Greens, who are not an insignificant party. They poll 5%, and they get that approximate votes. You've got the Scottish National Party, which sucks up disproportionate amount of seats in the parliament for their percentage share of the popular vote. You've got Plaid Cymru, which is a Welsh nationalist party. And then in Northern Ireland, it gets even more complicated because you have Sinn Féin, which is basically like the political wing of the IRA or vice versa. And you have the unionist parties in Northern Ireland. So it's a much more complicated landscape in the legislature than the US is. Not necessarily better, just more complicated.
Right. Well, now it's going to be hard for me to argue, obviously, against a Brit who knows probably better than I do. But would you say that Jeremy Corbyn completely, like because listen, when he went up against Boris Johnson in this last election, I mean, yes, he did not do very well. But the election before that, Labour, did extremely well, and he got extremely close, and there was the whole conversation did change in the same way that when Bernie lost in 2016 about how good he did. Wow, look where the future of the party is. I felt like that really was where things were headed with Corbyn, and then it all fell apart because of Brexit, it seems. Is that not a correct way to look at things? I mean, it did seem like Corbyn was, and again, I don't think people call him UK's Bernie for that reason. I think it's because he's just the most prominent figure on the left in the UK, just like Bernie's the most prominent figure on the left here. In fact, Corbyn is to the left on Bernie on many issues, it seems like.
Massive.
Yeah, and let's remember too that they both lost. Like, not to be a doomer about it, but I do agree Bernie was somewhat better than Jeremy Corbyn was at handling bad faith attacks. But in the end, they both lost. And I think that is more, there's always contingencies. I'm sure there were things that they both could have done better. But I really think the primary factor was larger structural forces, the same forces that created this huge wave of right-wing populism and have been causing de-alignment by the working class from the leftmost viable political party for decades now.
Okay, I'll speak specifically to that. So I'll just compare the two leaders, right? So Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the opposition party, so he was actually leader. Bernie did an enormous amount of work while never being the leader of the Democratic Party. The amount of change he might have been able to do if he'd won the nomination is, so you're not comparing apples to apples. You had someone who was in control of the party for like 4 or 5 years versus someone who's pushed the party left, never been in control. Bernie Sanders ran as an independent when he got his seat in Congress and so on. And then from that, built a base of support where he sort of ran on the Dem ticket because he felt that was the way he could become mainstream. Jeremy Corbyn was always in the Labour Party and ran in Islington North, Islington, whichever, which is one of like the most left-wing seats in the country, safe seats. So Bernie Sanders fought his way up from mayor of Burlington to try and become leader of the party and failed because of factors in sort of US politics. Jeremy Corbyn was a backbencher who didn't do that much. He won a safe seat and kept on winning it. In terms of like hunger and drive, Bernie knows how to talk to people who are not. He never preached to the choir. He always was looking to convert people. And you would have seen that from the Fox News town halls and everything else. Jeremy Corbyn was happiest when he was speaking to people who were already in his own camp, and that's the way he campaigned.
Mm-hmm. I mean, those are great points. I mean, I can't speak to because I don't know as much on that front in terms of the delivery, because I'm sure, my experience watching Corbyn is from seeking out clips myself, whereas you're subjected to them. He's on regular.
Don't forget the impact of Brexit, which is a factor that we did not have here. Like, I feel like if anyone's comparing Bernie and Corbyn, it's you, sir.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think the Bernie Corbyn thing is something the left definitely does. I don't agree with that, Jamie.
Sure, fair. I mean, we have made such comparisons and they hold true to a point, and after that they don't. But I'm just saying that Brexit was a huge factor, and Jeremy really fumbled the ball on that one.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Brexit was huge in that. But also, I do think, the bad faith attacks, the accusations of anti-Semitism on Corbyn, it didn't take hold here because Bernie Sanders is one of the most prominent, if not the most prominent Jewish politician, honestly, now I think you can safely say in American history. I mean, it wouldn't have held. I mean, they did try whenever he would come out and speak in favor of the Palestinians against Israel. I mean, one of the few people in that, I'll never forget those moments in 2016. It was unheard of in American media, mainstream American media, to hear someone say the things he was saying on stage with Hillary Clinton. I respect him so much just for that, and he'll always hold a place of respect with me just for doing that. But he was Jewish, and it didn't hold, because how do you call a Jewish person like that, who's so obviously represents his Jewish background proudly? How do you call him anti-Semitic? I mean,
I mean, look, a lot of the attacks against Corbyn were bad faith, and especially the outlets making them. If it hadn't been anti-Semitism, there would have been some other thing that was brought up. But are you guys aware of who Ken Livingstone is? Do you know who Ken Livingstone is?
Sounds like a name I've come across, but you got to tell me.
So he was mayor of London for like 2 or 3 terms before Boris Johnson was, and as a mayor, wasn't actually that bad. So he was there's no US equivalent, but he had the prominence of, let's say, the mayor of New York, right? That's the size of London in the kind of UK political scene, and a very close friend of Jeremy Corbyn. And this is not to say I think that Jeremy Corbyn holds anti-Semitic views, but Ken Livingstone, live on the radio, basically said that Hitler was a Zionist. And you can go and he literally said that at one point there was, quote, real collaboration between the Nazis and the Jews before the Germans got into the final solution, which is just nonsense. It's complete rubbish, right? So whatever Ken Livingstone's journey is, he went far off the deep end. And I think Jeremy Corbyn's failure, and the failure with some other things that people in the Labour Party said that were anti-Semitic, is he was unwilling to draw the line when people were his friends. And he also had a real problem differentiating between criticism of Israel, which I think is justified, and a lot of people think is justified, and Zionism. So obviously not everyone who criticizes Zionism, anti-Semitism, not everyone who criticizes Israel is an anti-Semite, but guaranteed everyone who's an anti-Semite is criticizing Israel, most people anyway.
Well, I don't know if that's guaranteed. Not in America.
Yeah, that's not true, at least anymore. I mean, the far right here, and anti-Semitic as hell, love Israel.
They want the Jews to go back to Israel so that there can be Armageddon. I mean, that's in evangelical Christian theology. Basically, 2/3 of them are going to die. It's an anti-Semitic trope in and of itself. A lot of support for Israel.
Doesn't sound. I was so flabbergasted when I found that out, because I have had very little exposure to Christianity. I was wait,
you didn't know that?
No,
you learned that recently?
Yeah, I was wait, they think what? Oh God, that doesn't sound good at all. No deal.
they need the Jews to all, perish in hell so they can, they can ascend to heaven.
Thank you, sir, but I will pass on that.
Right. I mean, but also,
Okay, well,
I think it's even.
Argument was Corbyn was a weak leader, so I mean we can agree to disagree if you want, but
I think you made some. I think you made
was
some
a
really good
disaster.
points, though. So I do appreciate the call. He certainly. Thanks for the call, by the way. I'm gonna let you go. Really appreciate the call, though. I thought it was a really good call. On the far right, though, in Israel, I mean, also it's not just that in terms of the religious right. There is a lot of far right figures who actually really like Israel for what they do to the Palestinian people. They like Israel for their military, the IDF. They think they're super cool, and they wish the U.S. armed forces were much more like the IDF. So it's not all just the religious right either. Like, I mean, Netanyahu, I would, for all the focusing on Putin and Trump being BFFs, I mean, whether you believe that or not, what is 100% true is that the real BFF friendship was Trump-Netanyahu. I mean, Putin was never as close to Trump as Netanyahu was. The two of them practically, Trump didn't have a better friend than Netanyahu. And honestly, when there was polling whenever there was polling that would come out on what the people of certain countries thought of Trump, there was no country that loved Trump more than Israel either. And again, I always say for Democrats who are progressive on everything but Palestine and defend Israel everything, why don't you think about, and there is a left in Israel, why aren't you standing up for them? There are people in Israel who stand up for the Palestinians, who are trying to fight against the far right Netanyahu regime. And you're basically, by defending Israel, and when we say Israel, we're talking about the Israeli government, you are basically defending Israel's Trump. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Just realize what's going on in that country. Realize that the Netanyahu regime and Israel's government's been right-wing for a very long time. And I'm sure if you go back, it'll probably, you probably argue it's been like that forever. Why are you siding with them? I mean, you should be voicing your disagreement with them just the same way you disagreed with Trump, because Trump and Netanyahu are the same guy.
Pretty much. Well, I think things are starting to shift a little bit in the United States where this is concerned, because the vast majority of American Jews are not Zionists and do not conflate criticism of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism. And, it's really just a tiny vocal minority that still believes in any of this stuff. So.
But they still, they're able to wield it when they need to.
Oh yeah, they have an inordinate amount of power and platform for sure. But I don't know. I feel like things are shifting around a little bit on this issue.
Right. A couple of weeks ago, though, a good example of how it still is bad. A couple of weeks ago, I had Mumita, who she's known as Disruptionary on Twitter. She was she's the founder of Millennials for Bernie, worked to get Bernie elected since the first campaign in 2016. And she ran for city council. There was a special election earlier this year in February, earlier this month in Queens. And she was one of the favored people. If you looked at the media, she was the one getting all the endorsements. Bernie even endorsed her. And there were some big money interests in real estate who actually were also Donald Trump donors who got involved in this very small special election race in Queens and spent lots of money, honestly, for a city council race to specifically defeat her. And what they did is they found an old tweet of hers where she basically voiced her support for the children of Palestine. And the one thing was that it was in reply to a comment of someone who posted a less than savory tweet. It was, there was a picture that that sort of, could be construed for sure as anti-Semitic if you know what you're talking about. But if you're not, it just looks like a criticism of Israel. And she apologized, and they didn't matter, and they attacked her hard for it. And honestly, they were able to rile up her neighborhood has a strong Jewish community, like Orthodox Jewish community, and they were able to really rile them up and get them to turn out. And they voted in big numbers to make sure she lost. And it was, it was very disheartening to see, because she was the first out socialist up for city council in New York. And for those who don't pay attention to New York politics, there's a number of we have a number of city council races up for grabs this year in New York.
That's
and there
right.
are a number of socialists running. And
Well, yeah, we got a great slate together for DSA.
Right.
Why don't
but
you
she could have
highlight
been-
some of those, Jamie?
She could have been but she could have been the canary in the coal mine for it, and really set the bar at a good level. Unfortunately, the big money interests were able to make sure she lost due to these accusations of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I think it also is very dependent on the district and the demographic makeup of that district. But we've got Brandon West. I know some of my friends have been tabling for him lately. Tiffany Caban, remember her? She almost won the Queen's DA race, and it was, maybe stolen from her, maybe a
Nefarious.
squeaker.
Yeah.
Not sure. The other two, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm very excited about all of them. And
Michael
as
Hollingsworth, I know DSA is out for him on the weekends, handing out literature and stuff.
yeah. Oh, yeah. We got Hollingsworth and 5 other socialists: Adolfo Abreu, Alexa Aviles, Tiffany Caban, Brandon West, and Jaslyn Cower. So if you live in any of their districts, I know that's very niche local content, but please vote for them, volunteer for them. And this is one place where we've been working to connect up the abolitionist work that DSA is doing to defund the NYPD with electoral campaigns to elect a socialist city council, because the city council gets to vote on the police budget, and we're trying to cut it by half. And that's very ambitious and very exciting. So I really hope that we see some positive movement in that area. Not to tie everything back in with my bailiwick or anything.
No, but it's good to know. Good to name check people. Can we get to that Larry Kudlow clip really quick? I know it actually wasn't in our sound, but it'll be easy enough for you guys to remember because it's an old one.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't picked your clip yet.
I haven't.
Emma, so
I'm
you don't have
having.
to-
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. The technical difficulties are still, bugging the hell out of me. But let's get into it, because Larry Kudlow, you might remember, was a part of the Trump administration. Did you guys realize that he replaced Lou Dobbs on Fox Business?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, well, he's going to be back in the spotlight for a long time, unfortunately, or fortunately for everybody who loves charisma and jaw-dropping good looks.
Maybe that means that Sam could get on Fox Business, though, because I don't know if you guys know, but back when I was there, Larry Kudlow would often invite Sam on his CNBC show.
Maybe. I mean,
So
that's
maybe.
Sam's probably very interested.
I would go on Fox Business.
Actually, I
Why-
would.
Hell
too.
yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. But Larry Kudlow, a year ago today, this is Thursday, February 25th, he said this when it comes to COVID.
We have contained this. I won't say airtight, but pretty close to airtight. We've done a good job in the United States.
They have contained it. 500,000 Americans, 500,000 have died from coronavirus.
Right. And that's not the only clip that came from today, 1 year ago today. Let me send you the other one that we should definitely play. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Did you guys see this one? Brendan, pull that up really fast.
I did not see what you're referring. Oh, yes, I know this clip though. Now that I've gotten the link,
This was also
right-wing-
1 year ago today.
Another right-wing Trumpy making wonderfully aged predictions on COVID.
Absolutely. This president will always put America first. He will always protect American citizens. We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama?
Kayleigh McEnany, thank you so much.
It is so refreshing. It's very refreshing. I feel refreshed now, 1 year later, because I'm able to laugh at you clowns as they made those predictions on television. And also the terrorism point. Look, I'm not going to call a lot. I think the designation of the insurrectionists as right-wing terrorists has some policy implications that aren't good, but lots of ironies baked into these statements.
Well, they didn't mean that kind of terrorism.
Of course, of course. But
I'm not one of those people who opine for the Obama era. But one thing I do miss that we had during the Obama years is, the ability to see each other in person.
Yeah, the ability to go out to dinner, the ability to go out to dinner in the winter time.
Right. I mean, this might be crazy for people, being that Emma and I have been now doing this together for like 4 months now, it seems. How long have you been here, Emma?
I started November, first week in November.
Emma and I have still never physically met in person before.
Never.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be shocked to learn that you're 5'1".
I'm 5'4", excuse you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, are we the same height?
Well, we have met, Jamie, although much less than the amount of times we've been on this show together. But I guess we.
Banter,
are the same
I actually
height.
don't know your height. I didn't mean to insinuate that you were actually 5'1". That's a joke, everybody.
Oh, well,
what if he
was? If you knew how tall I was, if people who do know how tall I am, they definitely will construe that as you mocking my actually very short.
Oh no!
You're the short king.
Oh no!
That is a short king. I don't really notice people's height unless they're like freakishly tall or shorter than me. So that's
I'm
like
5 foot. I'm
most
5'9".
people.
I'm 5'9".
You will tower over me, Emma. The weird thing is though that I don't know. I maybe because I've lived in this body my whole life, but I always look at myself and I say, I look like my height. Like if you see me on camera, like right now, you'd probably assume that maybe you wouldn't know I was 5'4", but you would probably assume I was at least average or below average height. But whenever back in the day when right wingers and gamergators would draw me in all sorts of ways to mock me, they would always draw me as some really tall, lanky person. And I was like,
I actually assumed you were like tall and lanky. That was maybe, part of the 5'1" joke. But
it's your Chad energy, Matt. You got it.
Short. Yeah, I'm short and brolic as hell, Emma. You should see these guys.
No, I mean, this man is a father. He's got Chad energy. They're jealous. He exists very large in their minds. And I feel the same way about myself. Like, I feel like my haters think I'm larger than I am. My likers think I'm taller than I am. Oftentimes, they're surprised to learn that I am only 5'4". But I would like to remind everyone that is average height.
Yeah, 5'4" is like the height for the, like you said, yes, it's like a completely normal height to be as a woman. Now,
yeah, I take it as a compliment though, because it must just mean that I have a big personality.
Maybe
that must be. I'm really. I just want to correct the record. I'm like 5'8.5".
Well, if we're going to be accurate as well, I think I'm 5'4.5". So
yeah, same. The half is very important.
I will take this though. I read that famous actors usually all have one specific attribute, and it's all that they have very large heads. And I don't know what that has to do, maybe because they have a memorable face or something. And I do very much enjoy that. I would say I have a pretty large cranium myself. It's very big. It's not small. It's a big head.
All right.
I have a big head to fit my big brain.
Well, I'm glad we've cleared up everyone's questions about our physical attributes. If you have any more questions, you can call us on the phone. No, please don't do that.
Yeah, don't encourage that.
Yes, please call in and talk more about how Emma and Jamie look. I mean, come on, guys, come on.
Oh my God, please.
Listen, if you got to call in to talk about someone's looks, I'm sitting right here. I mean, come on, come on.
Yeah, people are horny. It's like desperate times for everyone out there, and I get it, but like keep a lid on it, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get people who do that. It's very weird. It's very weird. It's very weird. I was listening to we're really going off but that's what the second half's for. I was listening to the radio the other day while I was in the car, and they were talking about if liking like a model on Instagram's like photos constitutes as cheating if you're in a relationship. And I was like, why is this even a conversation to begin with? What kind of corny ass person likes a photo to basically say that they're into someone? Like, who does that? Like, what weirdos?
I don't know. You follow who you follow. You like who you like within reason, obviously. Don't be liking any Nazis.
I think that counts cheating.
Like I understand there are images of me that I have put out into the world, and you could be horny for them in private, but I don't ever want to know. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
I honestly use the internet in a different way than everybody else. My likes are all like some hot political take, and not like any pictures of anyone's body or anything like that.
The photos you like are hot political takes.
Yeah.
Yes, honestly, it's all like memes and honestly, really.
Yeah, Matt likes bikini-clad political takes.
That's true.
Oh,
waiting
boy.
for those. Oh boy, I shouldn't even go there.
I feel like we need a palate cleanser. We need a palate cleanser to get ourselves out of this.
Perfect.
Right.
What is that palate cleanser? I thought you had something teed up.
Yeah, throw me something.
Oh geez.
Here's someone who will likely turn everybody off immediately. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh boy.
She's been doing something completely. I mean, for those who don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the QAnon congresswoman who, like, unlike the other QAnon congresswoman, Lauren Boebert, she is like legit in this world. She didn't come across this stuff on Facebook and share some stuff here and there. She was in contact and knew all the major QAnon influencers who were really integral in spreading QAnon over the past couple of years. And she is now a congresswoman, and she is using her time in Congress not to really push any legislation, thank God, but to do some really cool viral memes for the conservative base. And when I say really cool viral memes for the conservative base, I mean corny ass cringe shit. The latest one is actually truly disgusting. And do we have that clip of? Well, basically, we should start here, I guess. So Congresswoman Mary Newman, who is a freshman congresswoman, she's the woman who defeated Dan Lipinski in the primaries.
Yeah, decent progressive, decent Democrat in the House.
Right, Justice Democrat endorsed. Lipinski was one of the most conservative Dems in office. So just getting him out of office is a huge win in general, but also thank you, Mary Newman, for doing this. And is it Marie Newman or is it Mary Newman?
I didn't want to correct you. It's Marie.
No,
it's Marie.
Okay, Marie Newman. And she basically introduced a piece of legislation. And let's have her talk about it, because I think she has an experience that I certainly don't, as far as I know, with this piece of legislation. Play that clip, Brendan.
I rise today on behalf of the millions of Americans who continue to be denied housing, education, public services, and much, much more because they identify as members of the LGBTQ community. Americans like my own daughter, who years ago bravely came out to her parents as transgender. I knew from that day on my daughter would be living in a nation where most of its states she could be discriminated against merely because of who she is. And yet, it was still the happiest day of my life, and my daughter has found her authentic self. And as any mother would, I swore that I would fight to ensure this country changes for the better. Without the Equality Act, this nation will never live up to its principles of freedom and equality. The right time to pass this act was decades ago. The second best time is right now. I'm voting yes on the Equality Act for Evie Newman, my daughter, and the strongest, bravest person I know. Thank you, and I yield back.
Yeah, a really powerful, honestly great moment there.
Beautiful speech. I mean, and she's not the only Democratic progressive congresswoman who's spoken out and has a trans child. So this Pramila Jayapal, by the way, Jayapal. I think it's Jayapal, but Sam says Jayapal every time, and now it's infected my mind.
We were dealing with a bad case of Sederisms today.
Yes.
Right. I actually did not know that. So thank you for the new piece of information. That's and the really great moment, like we said. And this was the QAnon supporting Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's response to that moment. Outside that Congresswoman's office, she puts up a sign that says there are two genders, male and female.
Oh,
right. Yeah, the hand.
Smug ass bitch. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
But in front of Marie Newman's office.
I second that.
I mean,
I went too far. But
I honestly, just absolutely
the honest reaction.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't apologize. She is a smug ass bitch. I'll say it too. Also, this is not the most important thing about this, but I really hate it when people put unnecessary quotation marks around things. Like, trust the science? Who said that? You made that up. And
no, she's saying that because she's making fun of like Dr. Fauci and the other epidemiologists who've spoken about COVID and the Democrats who've backed that kind of science. So it's like, oh, gotcha.
Right. So she's taking something that Dr. Fauci said that was backed up by scientists and using it to support something that is in no way, shape, or form backed up by legitimate science. I get it. Really, really got us on that one.
Right.
Yeah, really got your colleague too, who I'm sure, feels really happy that she gets to see that sign every single day. But I mean, Marie Newman's a lot stronger of a person than Marjorie Taylor Greene, so.
Right. But Marjorie Taylor Greene even went further than just the sign. She tried to adjourn Congress that day, specifically in response to that LGBTQ act that Marie Newman spoke about on the House floor that she introduced. And to just show you that this isn't just Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's, Brendan, I just dropped a tweet in the chat. Can you pull that up? So Adam Kinzinger, who is a Republican congressman, said that this is sad and I'm sorry this happened, talking about the Marjorie Taylor Greene sign that she put up. Rep. Newman's daughter is transgender, and this video and tweet represents the hate and fame-driven politics of self-promotion at all evil costs. This garbage must end in order to restore our GOP. Now, you might think, Rep. Kinzinger, Congressman Kinzinger, wow, what a strong, brave stand he took saying that. Well, it's all just words that he's saying on Twitter, because if you look into it, you would find that, who voted in support of Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion to adjourn in order to end the House business of the day, specifically because Marjorie Taylor Greene opposed that law and wanted to attack trans people? Well, Adam Kinzinger. So again, just all bullshit from the GOP. They all support the same trash that Marjorie Taylor Greene is selling. They all just have different ways of how they want to portray it. And, for someone like Rep. Kinzinger, that's a little bit too forward for him. And it's a bad look.
Yeah, the sign, he's not in favor of the sign. He's just in favor of all the laws that back up that bigoted sign.
Mm-hmm. And they need these culture war issues because their cross-class alliance, whereby they get any working class people to vote for Republicans, isn't going to hold if they are primarily running against the $15 an hour minimum wage. Like this culture war nonsense is their bread and butter.
Right. I mean, that's all they got. I mean, what policies do they run on now anymore? They're even like, there's
not even debt. I mean, not even debt and deficit reduction. I talked about this. It'll be on Ring of Fire with Alex Shepard of the New Republic. I mean, they don't even really have a leg to stand on there. Yeah, they'll talk about debt and deficit reduction, but under Trump, they ballooned it in order to give tax cuts to the wealthy. So it's like even the Beltway media that takes so long to call Republicans out, they're not even buying their shtick anymore. So it's just, what policy positions do they support? There's nothing. There's nothing. The cupboard's bare. Trump completely ripped the lid off of things and made it fully about culture war stuff. It wasn't just primarily about it. Now that's all that Republican, this new brand of Republican has.
Yeah. I mean, for the ruling class and for the small business owners that make up a lot of Trump's base, they do care about the economics of it. But, you tailor your message differently for different groups of people. And maybe you say one thing when you're meeting with the Small Business Owners Association and you're like, yeah, we're going to keep the minimum wage real low. Don't worry, guys. And you say another thing when you're on Fox News where a more general audience might see it.
Right.
Want to take some more calls?
Someone just sent me this Rand Paul clip.
Rand Paul.
Yeah, of him likening transition surgery for trans people to genital mutilation. What a fucking asshole.
Yeah, let's leave that be.
Yeah.
We don't need to.
Yeah, he's literally saying this while questioning Dr. Rachel Levine, who is the trans woman that Joe Biden has nominated to his cabinet. Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could take comfort in the fact that these people are losing, right?
Well,
this battle, at least on a cultural level, I think acceptance of transgender people has gone way up, even in the past 5 years, and it will continue to do so. It's only moving in one direction. It's not going back. Right. At least I hope that is true.
Right. So, okay, let's go back to some calls. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know. I feel like this is a whole conversation we can go much longer on, obviously, but I think we're not in that clear. I think it's going to get bad again soon. But let's go to
Jesus.
Well, we all feel great. Yeah. I do host a show called Doomed. 517, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Jonas in Michigan.
How are you doing? What would you like to talk about?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. I have two things. First, I wanted to pass on to everybody that the Michigan State University has been doing talks called Freedom or Slavery to Freedom. And tonight, Dr. Cornel West will be doing a seminar, and it is free to the public. And so if you want to join the Zoom call and listen to Dr. West talk, just search for his name and MSU, Mary Sam Union, and you can join in. It's at 5 o'clock tonight.
All right.
Cool.
And then the other thing is I kind of wanted to go back to what you guys were talking about at the beginning of the show with the $15 minimum wage. And what's really frustrating to me is that a lot of the clips that you were showing were people talking about, the Republicans talking about people losing their jobs and stuff. But one of the things that is so frustrating to me is that no one will talk about how much the cost of turnover is. And I've worked in a lot of jobs, from retail to manufacturing to I work as a chemist now. And the turnover is so high because we're not being paid what we're supposed to be paid, even in these, positions where we're educated and stuff, and it takes so much time and so much money to train people just to lose them 6 months later because they leave because they're not being paid what they're worth. And not only do you lose time and money, but you also lose a lot of what a former, boss said was, we lose a lot of the tribal knowledge, and you lose a lot of little things that people know, but they don't necessarily share. It's just little tips and tricks on how to use machinery and things like that. So you lose so much by having high turnover. And one of the big things that prevents that is paying your employees what they're worth and increasing the minimum wage. You're not only going to see people not having to work 2-3 jobs, but you're going to see people working one job and they stay in those jobs longer. and they're more productive, which we've already seen. But even still, it's very frustrating to me that they're walking out these people saying, oh, they'll lose jobs. And it's like, millennials are changing jobs like every, 3 times as much as boomers did. And it's because we're just trying to get by on scraps and constantly looking for the next thing that will actually pay our bills.
Oh, it's 100%, and it's even more than that in terms of back even when when my parents who are baby boomers were working, the thought in those days was you show your loyalty to a company, and they'll show it back to you. They'll give you raises when necessary. They won't fire you and leave you on the streets and leave you hanging. If you scratch their back, they'll scratch yours. That's gone. Companies don't even, it didn't happen completely, but I would say it's even way worse than it ever was before. And even further than that, you used to be able to, spend some time at a company and guarantee that, maybe once a year, maybe more than that, maybe twice, once every 2 years, you get some sort of substantial raise or promotion if you do the work. Now it doesn't matter. The only way for you to really get a substantial raise and make yourself worth more is usually to jump to a different company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think
the companies
that era of capitalism was never all it was cracked up to be, in my opinion, but it's not coming back. And my hope is that at the very least, this will create some kind of openings for young people to struggle and agitate. And, maybe not all of them are socialists. Maybe they just want to bring back a secure working life for themselves. But in the course of that struggle, my hope is, they'll realize that we need to go beyond that. And this movement will overflow its bounds and become something more. Because nobody is actually paid what they're worth.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not.
I don't want to be like, well,
actually.
Sorry, go on.
But one of the companies I worked for, they paid us well below the average, and their whole thing was that, we're going to get these students and we'll bring them in, and then we'll get them experience, which was a nice idea because most places now value that more than degrees, which they won't ever tell you. But they said, okay, we're going to pay you less, but our benefits are amazing. It's like I had full insurance and I have chronic health problems that I need to take care of. And my deductible was $500 and I was paying pennies. And then, in the show of loyalty that I'm there for this company, I'm doing everything, I'm working 60 hours a week. They pull us into the benefits meeting for that year and shoot us all out for using our health insurance and told us that we needed to, be smart healthcare consumers, and then slashed the budget, and cut all the benefits and didn't increase pay at all. And then, the place I work at now, hopefully the CEO doesn't walk out right now, but they sent us an email saying, oh, we didn't make a lot of money this year. So, around Christmas time, I guess they usually get bonuses. It's not, you guys, we can't pay our bonuses. So if you got a raise, like, great, that's great. And then he left in his brand new Tesla that he bought this year. So it's just like, you constantly get these reminders that's just like, why am I here? Like, you're not paying me enough. You're not doing healthcare, but it's like, you just know that it's the same thing everywhere. And it's like, if we could just get paid more, they would solve so many issues.
Yeah. Well,
canceling the Christmas bonus. You got to tell your Uncle Eddie about that one, if you know what I'm referencing here. I mean, but
there's an essential conflict there.
Not even the Jelly of the Month Club. I mean, National Lampoon. Come on, guys. But that's bullshit, though. Like the idea that you would. I mean, I can tell you that I know that you're not the only person, but that's happened to. But that's really horrendous. Like, just not even caring about the optics of it. Like, one thing to cancel the Christmas bonus, another thing to not give a shit that it's visible and known that you just bought yourself a brand new vehicle when apparently you're all supposed to be struggling. I mean, give me a break.
Well,
sorry that happened.
That's capitalism for you. And I see what you're saying about how it could actually benefit the bosses as well to treat the employees better. And that is true to a point. But there is an essential conflict called the boss-worker relationship. I'm trying not to use jargon because people get mad when I do that, and I'm trying to be better. But basically, nobody is paid what they're actually worth because capitalism runs on the very central idea that the worker, right, human labor is the thing that creates value, that creates surplus value. And so the boss wants to pay you for as little as possible because there's like part of the working day where the worker makes enough to reproduce themselves as a person, provide food and shelter and everything else. After that, the boss is skimming off the top. The amount of value you're creating for the boss is the amount of value that the boss gets from you is, I screwed that up. I'm so sorry. You know what I'm saying, right? It's more than what they're paying you. They pay you a fraction of that. So bosses want to pay workers as little as possible.
I'm well aware.
And I think it's really important to come up with specific examples like that to show people how workers are getting screwed, because for a lot of people, that's all they need to realize the very unfairness baked into the system. You don't need to read theory to understand that. So thank you for telling us about it.
It's very baked into everything. It's like they talked about the, people waiting tables and stuff and retailer workers, like, absolutely, they are paid well below, but this is not just a bottom issue. It's throughout the whole thing. Like, I'm a chemist, they told me when I graduated from college, oh yeah, you'll be making like 50, 60 grand a year. I make half that and I'm salaried, which I was always told growing up, like, I'm 32, I'm a late millennial, like, oh, salary, that's when you've made it. And I started my job and I'm like, oh, I'm working past my 40 hours. And they say that, and I don't get paid for it, but I have to make my 40 hours or else they take my vacation time. Like, this doesn't feel like I've made it. This just feels even more like wage theft than what I was dealing with before. So it's a whole thing that is, prevalent through every single facet of, companies and the workforce, short of the CEOs, and the conversation needs to continue. We need to push for this $15 minimum wage, because as I had to convince my coworkers, just because the person is making $15 at McDonald's doesn't mean your wages are going to stay the same. And if they are, then hey, go work at McDonald's, because it's probably a lot easier than what we're doing, So thank you guys.
Oh no, thank you. Great call.
Thank you. Boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I post on company time.
I know a slightly different version.
Hell yeah, let's just pass.
I know a slightly different version of that one.
What is it?
Instead of post, that's why I poop on company time.
That's good too. I do miss that part of having a full-time job.
I will say, working in the biz we work in, I guess bit hard to. I mean, what are you gonna do? Be on the mic while you're in the bathroom? I mean,
oh dear. Oh no.
Why are we doing this now?
Although, yeah, I guess I forgot that the type of calls we get for you two, and now we're gonna get some really weird stuff. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh boy, we're working blue today, folks.
Let's take one more call, I guess. I don't know, and then we'll do an IM or two, and then that's the show. A quick call.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. I have a kind of an earlier out.
Yep, no problem. We got
Thank you.
like a little less than 15 minutes?
Yeah, sounds good.
629, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Hello? Oh, hi, it's Josh from Kentucky.
Hey, Josh from Kentucky, what's up?
First time caller, so I'm kind of nervous, but could you each really quickly give us all your shoe sizes?
Shoe sizes?
No.
Oh boy.
No.
Because you're
no.
It's like,
unless you're planning on sending me a brand new pair of like Vans or Docs, then then I will give it to you. By the way.
No, you were talking about body parts earlier. Anyway, the real question was about
Kentucky, you're not
like, the
Buffalo
majority.
Bill from West Virginia.
Okay, Brendan with a funny quip there, but go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, about maintaining a majority in Congress in 2022. Like I never talk about politics with my family, like living in the, Bible Belt, being lefty. I just don't want to do that. But my brother and his sister-in-law live in Texas, and with like the Arctic ice storm and all that they had to deal with, rare time to actually talk about real life implications of politics. And I had to bust through like 10 layers of lies about these wind turbines. It's just insanely frustrating. So like in 2018, Democrats were able to surprisingly unify enough behind healthcare and defending the ACA to take the House. 2020, they were able to unify against, hatred of Trump, even though, Biden was pretty vague about his some of his policy positions. So what in 2022 can we do to, what can they do to unify? Like, assuming we get the minimum wage and we get past COVID, like, will they move to climate change, and like, how do we combat these lies, or is it debt relief? Like, what is it that we can, what can the Democrats unify if they even are able to do that? But
Right. I totally know what you're asking, and it's a really long, and it's like a whole episode, but in short, I mean, yeah, I think obviously getting COVID relief out to people right now is going to be big. I mean, this year is going to fly by, honestly. And it's going to be, you're going to start seeing campaigning for the midterms coming up very shortly. And they need to make people like them. I mean, literally, like really basic stuff. COVID relief. You mentioned debt relief. Forgiving some student loan debt would be huge. We don't really have a lot of time, but the idea that 2022 will be easier for the Dems than 2024. It's looking like they could hold on to what they got and maybe even gain some. 2024 is where they're possibly screwed. You have anything, Emma or Jamie?
Sorry, I'm still thinking about how I botched the basic formula of capitalism earlier. Don't worry. I'm on chapter 12 of Capital, y'all. I swear that I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, chapter 12. That's okay. All right. I'm at chapter 54, just by the way, just to let you guys know how.
Oh, wow.
How much leftist I am than
I'm sorry. Can you remind me of the question again, and I can answer it?
Yeah. Assuming like we get the minimum wage and we get past COVID, like 2022, how can we not lose the majority? I mean, do Democrats have?
Okay, that's what I thought it was. I'm sorry. That's what I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Yeah. COVID relief has to be as robust as possible. I mean, we're not getting over that $1.9 trillion figure based on the rules of reconciliation. So, obviously, including those $1,400 checks, the fact that it's not $2,000 is insane. But I mean, I think that's already an unavoidable chink in the armor, as they say.
I do think while 2,000 obviously is preferable, and I completely agree with the left for pushing them on this, I do think that when the majority of people get a check for $1,400, it will make them happy.
No, I do, but the Republicans will use that. They're also going to use Cuomo. I mean, that's why I'm hammering that the Biden administration needs to be more forthright and or more staunch in saying anything about Cuomo and the fact that he's comically corrupt. They need to expel this guy from the party. So those things I worry about. But other than that, Democrats are doing an okay job right now at just like understanding they need to go a little bit bigger than they did in the Obama years. I mean, it seems like maybe if Chuck Schumer uses more aggressive tactics and the parliamentarian allows for the $15 minimum wage to be used in reconciliation, there could be a way to whip those votes and maybe get $15 minimum wage, so that wage increases could begin. I mean, that wouldn't really happen until after the midterms, but that would be important. And then everything really is going to have to go past that filibuster. So I wish that if they could just eliminate the filibuster, there'd be a lot of ways for Democrats to help people a lot more materially and help themselves going into 2022. But and last thing, the good news is that Trump seems to still want to make himself central to the party and is about to speak at CPAC. And the media is obsessed with covering him because that's all they got in terms of ratings. And so if they keep covering Trump with his popularity, what it is now, that could be helpful to the Democrats.
Oh, and on the topic of the $1,400 checks, maybe don't means test it to hell, especially considering the fact that a lot of these battles are lost and won in the suburbs. And that was the Democratic Party's strategy. So if all of a sudden you're restricting people who make like $50,000 to $75,000 a year from these benefits that you're giving, like what does that say to your middle class base?
The good news is that seems to have died out. Is that's my presumption. Who knows? But it seems like, you know, Biden has won over Manchin in that area. It was like one senator really pushing it, and Manchin seems to have placated his branding exercise by voting against Neera Tanden, which I'll totally take. So
yeah, let people enjoy things. Let's savor this victory over Neera Tanden, enemy of the left, for at least a few days before we go to, oh, what are the implications? Come on.
100%.
It's not a sure thing yet. Yeah.
Well, no, it's based on Murkowski, and I doubt Murkowski's gonna join.
Did you guys see the racist attacks being thrown at that Washington Post reporter?
Oh, I thought you were saying Neera Tanden.
Who asked Murkowski about a tweet that Neera Tanden directed at her a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Some of the most disgusting, like, listen, it's blue MAGA. Literally, it is. That's at the point. Like, you're literally just standing for a team, and you're no different than the Trump people. When you're literally
like centrist liberal sort of online activity and hate is something that needs to be like,
it's totally ignored. It's totally ignored.
Yeah,
I think there was like one article about like Kamala's problem with the K-Hive, and it was like really like beat around the bush. Like, it is really disgusting and toxic. Like, how many articles we get about the Bernie bros? Like, I gotta say, this shit is so much more upfront and in your face with the derogatory language they use and shit.
Just that, the Bernie supporters got all that attention, allowed this to fly under the radar for so long and fester at the same time. So, now we have a problem.
Right. It's gross. But we don't have running out of time. Let me read one or two quick IMs here.
I just want to note, I know we don't really have time to play the clip, but Deb Haaland did a land acknowledgement, which I think it was the Capitol buildings being on native tribal lands, and I think it's important that she did that.
Yeah, watch that coverage on Democracy Now. They covered it. Always happy to promote them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz prolapsed. That is a username here. Arms flexing meme. One side punks, one side goths. In the middle, where the hands are clasped, skulls being cool. I like that.
Yeah, a third, but deadheads there too.
Oh no!
Okay, that's you're one of those, Brendan. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's probably a little closer to my
sorry
my
you don't,
sensibilities.
Matt.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's you, Emma. Ooh.
No, I'm not. But
Greg Ginn was a huge deadhead from Black Flag.
Great. JJ Cool says, great Thursday show as always, guys. I hope to hear a lot more from Fascist Sam. Did I miss something? Thanks in advance, Jamie.
Yeah, maybe you will. We'll see how it goes.
Insurrection Enema. Hey Matt, how are you coping with Daft Punk splitting up after 28 years? Why would I care about that? Daft Punk's not a punk band.
Nobody cares about Daft Punk.
I care about Daft Punk. Come on.
I mean, they got some catchy songs, but Space Lennon says emo is greater than goth, which is greater than punk. Thank you. I love you all. Hard disagree.
Don't know about that.
The one other thing that goth and punks are uniting over. Bending Sinister says guy liner forever. Nug Wrangler says, does Emma still have access to the soundboard? She had such a way with it last week.
No, because I'm back in my seat. You know, Sam's seat is between our plastic dividers. I only temporarily had access, but maybe if I host the show again, when Sam's out next, I'll be running rampant with it.
Did he fumigate his area after you left? Like,
honestly, I came in after him today, so maybe because this is the first time we've been in the same room. The window's very open. I'll say that the window is quite open.
I would not be able to handle that. I get so cold.
I contemplated bringing a blanket into the studio.
Oh my god! Just show up with like a Snuggie on one day.
Yeah.
Rabbit from Boston says, short king, we love you, old Matt. Why, thank you. Finn says, Matt Binder, wear makeup on Majority Report next Thursday, please. And I'll up my doomed Patreon subscription. Ooh, I might have to do it for that reason. You know how to get what you want out of me.
I do feel like you and I should put on a lot of dark eye makeup and host a Halloween show next year.
Right. Maybe
I have an idea for Halloween, by the way, next year.
Ooh.
I won't say it, but I had an idea the other day.
My interest is piqued.
Is Ken being retired? I guess so. It makes sense, right? I can't believe that Good Morning Comrade says, I can't believe that Mr. Potato Head is no longer Mr. How am I supposed to explain this to my child? Oh yeah, I saw this. Hasbro's dropping the Mr.
I saw someone tweet like my potato head has balls or something like satirically, which I thought was funny.
Anatomically correct potato head.
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro's apparently going off on it. We'll have to hit that another day. All right. I guess that's there's a bunch of other IMs, but we can't get to them all, folks. One last one. Champagne Economy. Do y'all think Bernie is going to vote for or against? I'm not going to describe her as you described her, Neera Tanden. I think he's going to vote for her. I think it's actually a fairly smart move for him to vote for her simply because I don't think he should,
It makes him look not petty at all. It makes him look, and like, who cares?
Yeah, above it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he is above it, honestly. I think they're attacking Bernie, but because the centrists and the K-Hive are attacking Bernie for it. He wasn't even the person to bring up the damn tweets. It was Lindsey Graham and a bunch of Republicans.
Yeah, he gets very uncomfortable with that kind of attention when people started talking about her tweets to him.
He only brought it up afterwards, and and it was only because they brought it up. I mean, who cares? Who cares? He's gonna vote for her. I can almost guarantee it. I'd be shocked if he didn't. And if he does, I think it's a smart move from him, to be honest.
I hope someday I get to vote to confirm one of my haters just to show how above it I am. Like, that's the power move right there.
One can only hope.
All right, folks. The Nomiki Show is on in mere minutes at her Nomiki Kant's YouTube channel. Tune into that. Come watch Doom tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time at youtube.com/Matt Binder. Podcast is up afterwards at doomedpod.com. My guest tonight is New York Assemblyman Ron Kim. We'll be talking about Cuomo and COVID in New York. It'll be a great show. Sam and Emma and the MR crew is back here tomorrow. Jamie, tune into Antifada whenever you guys are doing Twitch stuff. Is it tonight? You doing Twitch something
tonight? Is canceled. Breaking news. But tomorrow we have Pop Culture Party with Courtney Soliday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Ooh, where are all the conservatives standing up for Antifada who've been canceled by their own Jamie Peck? Unbelievable. But anyway, that's it for today, folks. See you all next week.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie. kicking, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere that